continue driving, you'll catch up with us, but I know you'll be able to hear us. So today we are on our 4th day of our 7th HR Symposium. And I'll start by just introducing myself because I can see there are new participants. And my name is Rhoda Wairioko. I said Rhoda is a HR practitioner. I'm a HR consultant, and I've been partnering with ACHRP in terms of the training. And
you're swimming.
Then kindly mute.
Sorry.
That's okay. So we'll just be unmuting our mic when we need to speak, so that then we are able to have a flow. So welcome to this session. It's been a virtual training. It all began on Monday, where we started with the topic of crisis management, went through crisis management. We looked at, and I also gave an assignment. Then from there, I know on Tuesday and yesterday, which was Wednesday, Catherine took us through the effective problem solving. And I'm sure there are things that we picked. And our today's topic, being the 4th day and the last, is going to be on what we call root cause analysis. And this topic is very closely related with what we have been going through the last 2 days about effective problem solving with Catherine. And maybe we'll just start a recap on maybe what we learned during the last day, so that we are able to see how we are going to plug in the root cause analysis. Polycarp, could you kindly take us shortly through some of the key takeaway that you took for the last 2 days that Catherine was taking us on effective problem solving, so that we are able to connect with today's topic? Polycarp, are you able to unmute? Great.
Hi, Rhoda.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm Salama. So I'm currently in another session, but I can be able to type in the chat kindly.
Okay, so that's okay. That's okay. So I'll just take us through what I picked from that session. It's a session that I've attended before. And why we attend this, because we want to link and to synchronize what we learned. So of course, Catherine was able to take us through what a problem is. She was able to tell us what is a problem, and we are able to clearly understand. And I am sure she clearly also said that problems are always not bad. Yes, we may have a problem, but they may not be bad always. A problem could be a challenge, depending with how we look at it. And it could be an opportunity for us to be able to recover from that and even take a different path, like we saw in the crisis, and we are able to maybe look for better ways of doing things. Thank you, Polycarp. You're saying we brainstormed about the techniques of problem solving, like the Fishbone, the Pareto, the 5 whys. All those are things that we learned. You also learned about the root cause analysis as one of the approaches of the problem solving. Of course, we learned all those. And one thing that is very clear is that we don't have a very definite or one definite approach that we can say, this is the most effective approach of problem solving that can solve all the problems that we are going to see, or that will fit with all the management styles. And one of the things that was very key is how effective the problem solving will depend with some of the attributes or factors, like what are the skill set of the senior managers or the problem solving team. Of course, we also learned about how to constitute these problem solving teams. What are some of the attributes, who can fit in, and what do we look for when you are gathering a team, as we looked in the crisis management, also in the problem solving. And the success of that problem solving and the choice of the approach will depend with the competencies of the people or the problem solving team. It will also depend with the organizational culture, because our organizations differ from one organization to another. Again, it will also depend with the management style. What is the tone of the leadership at the top? Are they able to look at things, and are they ready to take more risk? Are they ready to actually solve those problems? And as we saw in the crisis management at the beginning, we said there are those problems or crises that arise out of an accident. things that could not be foreseen, they could not be controlled, they could not be prevented, like the natural calamities. Then we actually saw that some crises could be manufactured the same way. The problems that we have in our workplaces or even our individual life, some of them could be man-made, could be triggered by ulterior motives, maybe conflict of interest when you look at the cultures that we operate on. So those are some of the things that are actually likely to influence how successful we look at the culture. We also went through the 5 stages of problem solving. I know she took us through the problem identification, how to define the problem, how to look for the causes of the problem, how to come up with different options or maybe what we can call alternatives to problem solving, how we go into selecting the best, making the recommendations, also implementing and probably documenting. So even what we are going to learn for today, being the last day, it is not so far from there. So she was able to take us through how to come up with a clear or a smart problem statement when you're defining, how we select the problem solving team she took us through, and also the problem solving process that she took us through until we make recommendations and we draw conclusions. So then from where I'll pick, she took us through about 8 methods of what we can call approaches to problem solving. And as Polycarp have said, she took us through the first process, which was what she was calling the PDCA method, which is to plan, to do, to check, and also to act. So first you plan, then you do, then you check how that implementation has been, and then you act on it. She also took us through the appreciative inquiry, how you do a very general appreciative inquiry into the problem. And this is more of a proactive approach so that you can be able to arrive at the right solutions. Of course, you have mentioned that she took us through the 5 why techniques, and she also took us through what we call the Pareto analysis or the Pareto methods. Then she took us through what you're calling the fishbone or the cause-effect diagram. And she also took us through other very technical methods like the scientific methods, which is more of intuitive and drilling and asking long and short-term questions and for such solutions. She also mentioned about the simplex process, and finally the drill down approach. So for me, for the purpose of this discussion, I will narrow down to 3, which is we are going to look at the 5 why technique in general, just to give maybe more detail and to drill down on what she introduced. Then I'll also be able to look at the Pareto analysis and also the cause-effective diagram or the fishbone diagram. And why I picked on this, we'll start from maybe the case studies that we will have, and then also to help you how to drill into solutions. So my approach will be, we start with a case study. Then from the case study, we are going to be looking at each of the methods, what it entails, and its theoretical framework. We are going to look at their origin, where did they come from, who defined how they were defined, and then we'll also going at each maybe to look at the real case examples, like this case happened, how can we drill down, what are some of the solutions. Again, a disclaimer, as I said, problems are not bad. Sometimes problems just come to show us to the right path or to the right purpose or the most effective ways. How we deal with this problem will determine the success or the failures, and whether we'll come out as heroes of the problem or become villains of the problem. And I always, in my training, want to look at it from the corporate perspective, the organization perspective, but more importantly, how does it relate to us as individuals? So in more of my training, I try to bring it to an individual level, because one thing I believe, we are our own self. We are our own brand. You are the Polycarp, you are the Rhoda, you are the Frida, you are the Marceline in your own personal capacity. Before you went to work or you developed yourself to work, you are that one person. This is the person we bring to the workplaces. And we want to look at the problems, the way you could come up with a strategic plan for your organization. Then do you also bring it to your personal level, so that if you're able to master yourself and discover yourself in a personal way, you'll also take it to the organization level, and you'll be able to actually just synchronize, align, and you'll be able to achieve a lot of success. But if your life, you cannot solve even basic home problems or individual problems of career and life, then it will also be difficult for you to shift that brand to the organization level. So I think with that, basically, I've just done an overview of what we've done for the last 3 days, and being the last day. And I like what you put on the chat. And maybe before I now begin my topic, any comments, anything, any clarification, or anything that I may have left before we dive into the topic? Let me hear from you. Anyone? Then I can go straight to the topic. Good. I think then from there, no comments, please proceed. So that's very good. Root cause analysis. So maybe you could just tell me, or even type on the chat, what did Catherine say about the root cause? Or did she just mention it passively? Or in your own mind, how would you define root cause analysis? And I want you to align it to the problem solving. Root cause analysis, you can type your comments. You can just tell us what you think about it. Then we can now go deep into this. And when you're able to unmute, just unmute and just say your short comment. Root cause analysis, what comes to your mind? Then as you do that, I'll also share my screen so that, let me hear from you as I share this. Then you can confirm when you're able to see my screen on the other side. Root cause analysis, what comes to your mind? Anyone? I've seen comments on the chat. Process of getting to the actual cause of the problem or the root cause. Thank you very much. That is actually what root cause analysis are. It's just getting, instead of treating, when we are solving problems, instead of maybe trying to deal with the symptoms, the effects, or the impact of a problem, we want to drill down to what is the root cause of this problem. And we are doing that. We want to look at not just to have a temporary measure to deal with a problem. We want to go to the depth and the root of it, so that once we come up with the corrective measures, they are likely to be long-term, and we are not likely to have a repeat or a recurrence of what we are trying to deal with. Of course, most of the time, even in our personal life, we always look for quick fixes, or what we call the microwave solutions, something that is quick and it will mend this, and then life will continue. And we always like saying, like I would quote one of the public figures, they said, when it's not broken, why do you want to mend it? That if you can just do a quick fix, why do you want to go into digging into it? But once you do a very superficial or just fixing quick fixes, they are good because you get a quick solution. However, quick and cheap solutions are very expensive, because in the long run, they're likely to cost you more in terms of your profitability, the time to correcting those issues, and also maybe in terms of, if you're in a manufacturing industry, the cost of repairs and the defects and the disgruntled customers, because you're just giving them something that is close to good, not good enough. Yet they are expecting to have very excellent services from you. So let's just go through and see what we've prepared for you. So in terms of what we want to cover by the end of our 3 hours, we want to just have an explanation of what is root cause analysis, which we have already discussed. So we'll just see what we have. Then we have to look at the definition from an expert point of view, what root cause analysis. Of course, for this one, we are going to look at 3 definitions from 3 experts, and majority of these experts looking at the problem solving, they are either TQM experts, or maybe they are reliability experts who've been looking at how the processes in their business have been and how it has come to. And then we'll also look at the definition from the founder of the Fishbone, just 3 that are top of the mind from mostly the quality standards experts, how they have defined the root cause of analysis, because of course, some aspect of it are scientific in nature, and they will include a lot of plotting of graphs and the graphics about to come up with the solution. Again, we are going to look at it. Why is root cause analysis so important? Is it a topic that we should be spending time and investing our money to study? Why is it so important? How does it impact on our business? Then we are going to further to look at the steps for conducting a root cause analysis, of course, at a very high level. Then we'll also look at how can we use this root cause analysis knowledge that we are talking about and learning about for boosting our productivity. Again, we are going to relook at the 3 methods that I talked about, the 5 why techniques, and we will give examples. Probably yesterday you defined what are the 5 whys, what are the questions, how you drill down until you get a solution. But now today we are going to look at real life examples. Again, we are going to explain the process of Pareto analysis, how it came about, or what we call the 80-20 rule. And finally, we are going to look at the steps for creating the fishbone diagram, being the third method that we are going to look at. Then we will look at what are the pitfalls and what are the difficulties, what are the challenges when you're dealing with the root cause analysis. Is it all that easy? What are some of the things that we can avoid? What are some of the things that we can be really keen about to be able to have an effective problem-solving solution? And also, we are going to look at, finally, sorry, my screen. We are going to look at the list, maybe tips for effective root cause analysis. What are some of the tips? With all these problems and the challenges that are surrounding us, what I'll call the nuggets or the tips so that we can have a successful root cause analysis. So by the end of that session, we should be able to actually clearly understand what's the root cause analysis. Polycarp, are you able to read for us? I want to request. No, okay, you said you have a problem. So I'll just take us through the first case, and I will just request that you keenly listen to the case study, because it will help us to actually understand the meaning, the definition, and how we come about it. So that's okay. I'll take us through. So this is a case study of an organization that I'll equate to. It's a Necomat business, which I would equate to organizations that we clearly know, like the Alibaba. We also have organizations like Jumia. Jumia is more common to all of us, that normally do with merchandise, and they do online sales, and where people order their merchandise through the system online, then they are delivered to your door. So this organization had a problem, and let's see how the problem came about. And the problem they had, it is just a problem that we experience in our workplaces. It's not something foreign. It is something that is very real in our workplaces. And we'll also see some of the challenges that we're experiencing and what could have caused that issue. So the gentleman in front of us is called Peter Smith. Peter Smith was a new hire and was appointed as I want you to just take some notes. He's appointed as a secondary database administrator to work under the primary database administrator, who was his boss, called Rick Martins. So just pick Peter. Peter deals, if you look at the way IT is structured, we have people who work on the infrastructure. We have people who are system administrators, network administrators, and also database administrators. So the database administrators are the people who deals with the data of the organization. And then this database is normally structured also into two phases. There's what we call the front side, that is actually active and interacting with the customers, and our everyday running of the operation is premised on the primary data. Then we also have the back end, which is the secondary data in case of any emergency, in case of any crisis, or we've lost data or systems have crashed, we come back to the secondary data, which is in the backside. So Peter, this organization had the primary data administrator, but then they recruited for the position of the secondary data. And because the primary data is where the operations are, is the main guy. And he's actually superior than the person who is dealing with the secondary data in the backside of the system. So Peter Smith takes up this job and he reports to Ricky Martin, who is the primary data administrator. Then, as fate would have it, both Rick and Peter worked for this organization called Ecomart, a leading e-commerce company which sells various kinds of physical products through its popular e-commerce store or the platform. So Rick had an emergency at home, and he had to suddenly leave for his native place. We can call like the countryside, or probably go to the village to be with his family in this time of need. Probably he had a sick spouse, or he had lost a loved one, so he had to take leave. So when he took leave, in his absence, that's Rick, you can see the absence even in that picture, the complete responsibility of the database administrator, that is both the primary and the secondary, now was lying on this new hire called Peter on his shoulders. So when Rick was away, after a few days, the customer service, now the call center, started receiving several calls from irate customers who are very unhappy. And all the customers were complaining that they were unable to access the Ecomart e-commerce website. You can imagine that we are trying to order things online, but we cannot access the systems of Jumia or Alibaba. So what was happening was the server was returning a 500 error. And the day was a true test for Peter's job, who has just taken up the job, as several customer complaints were logged by the customer service center. Actually, the call center almost came to a standstill because all the customers were complaining that the system is down, they're not able to make their orders. As the website remained inaccessible for the better part of the day, the most productive part of the day, that is from 9:30 a.m. to about 3 p.m., people have given up. So there were several repercussions due to the primary business website of the Ecomart being down. So you can see this is a secondary database administrator who has to deal with the primary, which has now gone down and giving an error of 500. So that means no business can happen. So the customers were unable to make their purchases and complained of poor customer service because the customer service people were frustrated. They couldn't do anything about it. They could just take it back to Peter, who is unable to solve. So thousands of dollars worth of revenue were lost in that one day. Company reputation was tarnished. Some of the customers were lost forever, and they vowed never to return back because probably it's like this time for Christmas. I really want to get a gift before tomorrow for me to send or to travel, and the system is down. They cannot deliver. I cannot make orders. So you can imagine the frustration in the mind of the customer. So what did the customer do? Like what we normally see, our most of the merchandise or even what is happening in the websites happening. The company had to immediately announce a huge sale on their website to return the customers the next day, to lure back customers with further reduced profit. This is where we say half of the items or all our items are on 50% discount sales. Do you ever think what goes in the mind of the merchants or the people who are doing the sales? Because I'm sure hardly any organization make 50% profit on their products. So for them, because maybe items are expiring, they have to clear their shops for compliance, or such an occurrence of now the site is down and trying to lure back the customer. They just gave such a big offer, 50% discount on all their product. What does this mean? This hit their bottom line and also their profit. So Peter was lost as to what had happened. The website seemed to be running completely fine, but till the previous day, he just could not pinpoint the root cause of the problem. He was unable to comprehend. So in such situations, the root cause analysis could prove to be a boon to companies as well as their employees like Peter. If Peter had done a root cause analysis, he would have maybe been easily able to find out the root cause of the problem was due to, let's see what caused this. So we have 3 causes of this problem of returning the 500 error. And let's look at the 3. So the first root cause, after a root cause analysis, was the cause of the server returning the 500 error was that the application server, which processes the request or the orders for the customer, was timing out due to high web traffic. It's a time like this, like Christmas. So because of the high traffic, the application server or the front server was returning an error and timing out every now and then. So you'll try to make an order halfway, then you are timed out. The second cause was the cause of the timing out of now the application server, which is on the front, was associated to the database, was due to the associated database was not working. And then we go to the next question. Why was the associated database not working? And the root cause, number 3, was the cause of the database not working was because it was filled to full capacity with logs that had to be eliminated manually. These logs, we realized they had to be eliminated manually. However, Peter, being a new hire and taking on a job on an emergency because Rick now had to leave for his native side, was not aware that he had to manually eliminate the logs, and so the database had to be full. He didn't know. What do you think will be some of the solutions? Just type your solutions. What do you think will be the solutions? Hence, you can see how the conducting now a root cause analysis could help Peter maybe drill down to the main root of the problem, like we have drilled, and then find a solution to these problems. Now, with those 3 facts, what do you think will be the solution? The first thing, Peter is new to the role, and he didn't know what was causing the 500 error. Number 2, it's because the application database was failing because of an associated database. And the associated database was timing out. It was timing out because of the high traffic and also the many logs that had to be eliminated manually. Let me see some of the solutions. If you're able to unmute kindly. So you say, one of the comments is Rick should have done a proper handover to Peter, detailing actions to be done by who and by when. Excellent. Of course, you can see there was no, because of the rush, there was no detailed handover. There was no way Peter could have known that a system should not operate on its own, that someone had to go and eliminate. So a proper handover should be done. And probably looking at this department, did they have what called a process flow or a procedure, a process flow map on how the system operates? That for you to do this, if Rick is not in the office, then step 1 is you do this, step 2 clear, then do on this. This is how you do backup at the end of the day. This is how you clear the log. That probably was missing. So handover is very critical. Number 2, we should be able to document all the steps on how we do things so that any person who is coming to take over from us will be able to learn from that. Then we may have the handover, the manuals are there, but are they accessible at the time of people going? Do people know about it? Have they been entrenched in the system? Have they been implemented? Those are some of the things. So the other remarks I'm saying is that there should be a timer or a warning that when the system is full, maybe a red flag when like 75% full, for example, there must be triggers. That's very good. You can set on the system that say, it gives you that these logs are almost full, we're at 55%, kindly reboot, kindly eliminate. It should be entrenched on the system, whether through an email alert, an SMS alert for the people in the system, or on the system so that we are able to tell. Those are very good feedback. And that is how you come up with a solution. So I see we have already understood the topic. So I'll continue. Let's see what we came up as the solution to this, whether they are aligning to what we have said. We are all correct. And we say the solution here would be to manually delete the logs. And also the company should maintain written documentation about the tasks that the secondary data administrator has to do in the primary data administrator's absence. That is very, and this is now as HR, we bring it close home, even when we have people working. Do we normally have good succession plans? Do we have people shadowing others in the job? That if this person is not here, then this other person. Did you ever foresee that there could be leave of absence? Now, this is a case where someone had an emergency and had gone home. What if, touch wood, it doesn't happen? He had been hit by a lorry and he's no longer coming back. How could we have known this? Because now I imagine probably a phone call was made. And this is where we come up with some HR policies like encouraging people to take normal annual leave or what we call the block leave so that they can step out of their desk, ensure the handover. So as much as we are coming with the handover procedures, the documentation, let's try to entrench and test it before it occurs. That is very, so now we have now learned about what root cause analysis is all about, but now let's go to the meaning. What the meaning means, we will interchangeably use the root cause analysis with RCA, which is just the abbreviations of root cause analysis when we are referring to it. And we are saying in terms of the definition and what we have seen in our case study, that it is simply a method that is used to deal with the problems, the errors, the failures by finding the root cause or the reason for the origin of our problem. And the solution to the problem is then found by correcting or removing the root cause that we have found so that we can prevent that from recurring. If we are not able to completely eliminate, then we are able to reduce maybe the frequency of occurrence all from it repeating itself. I know at times it's very difficult to completely eliminate because as we'll see as we progress, there could be multiple causes. But then you start which is the major cause of this problem. Once we are able to pick what is the major cause that is holding 80% of the problem, then you resolve it. Then probably you may find that there are small causes, maybe staff negligence, the issues of not being keen, probably those manuals were there. So the ones that are quick fixes, you can fix as we try to correct the bigger one as we proceed. So that is basically what root cause analysis is all about. And maybe just to summarize, we say root cause analysis is simply a systematic, of course, it's a systematic way. It is not a haphazard way. It is a very systematic process that uses common sense. Some things you just need to use common sense. It's not scientific, to help in measuring and documenting. So what are we measuring and documenting? The identification. You have to identify what the problem is as the first line of defense. Then, after you identify the problem, you really need to understand what the problem is. And for you to be able to comprehend and understand, of course, the people at the forefront, the people who are dealing directly with the customers, the people who are dealing with the merchandise, and also the customers themselves are the best source of this information. They know where actually it pains. They know where we should not be trying to say that we are generalists, but we can really understand. But the people who have been primarily or basically affected by this problem should be the main source of information. So when you're dealing with root cause analysis, there is need to involve all the stakeholders and all the people who've been affected by the decision we are making or what we are looking at, so that we are able to understand the problem. Then after we understand the problem, because actually if we have a problem with the defining the problem itself, even understanding the problem will not be aligned. So the moment we understand the problem and we are able to clearly identify it, then resolving it becomes an easier thing. So then we resolve the problems through finding the root cause and also coming up with solutions. Is it now clear what root cause analysis means? Just from a very high level, we are clear what is root cause analysis? Yes, I'm getting affirmations. Yes, it's clear.
It's clear.
yeah, we can proceed. So let's look at maybe some of the definition. We'll just look at 3 definitions because I want to say there is no one universally agreed definition of root cause analysis or a problem. And this is cross-cutting to a lot of issues that it depends with where you are looking at it from. So what we are going to look at the 3 experts who have actually been able to study these, write books about them, see what they have said about the root cause analysis. So different people have defined root cause analysis in their own different terms, depending with their experience. And they're trying also to actually look at it from a very applicable position. So the first person to define the root of cause analysis is what we call Paul Wilson. Actually, Paul Wilson is the founder of the cause effect diagram, or what we call the Fishbone Diagram, and we'll see how he has actually defined this. Paul Wilson is an expert, is a TQM expert, and he's looking at it from the TQM perspective. And again, we are going to look at one of my best definitions from Volley and Trickle, because it's neither here nor there. Then they have also tried to look at it from a broader perspective and giving some level of flexibility that it could be encompassing more than that. And also they're also more realistic because it is not very definitive and there is not one solution that fits all. Then finally, we are going to look at a definition from the 3 brothers. They're called the 3 Latino brothers. We have the Robert Latino, we have Kenneth Latino, and also Mark Latino. These were 3 brothers, and they were what I would call reliability experts. They were operating in their reliability organization. And for the many, many years, actually, this is a business they inherited from their father, who was a reliable expert. And from their hands-on experience on the ground, now they started actually doing consultants to advise business people on how they can go to the root cause of analysis. And they have written a book about it. So it is from their practical real-life example that they now define root cause analysis, and they try to guide people on how to go about it. So Paul Wilson is a member of American Society for Quality Control, what we call the ASQC, and he has defined the root cause analysis in their book, which you can look at it, Google, and you can download that book, as a powerful tool that is used to identify. I want you to note the word, a tool that is used to identify, to record, and to visually represent the possible causes of the problem. And this is how he came up with the Fishbone Diagram, that you have to identify, record it. After you record it, then you express it in a visual diagram. And for them, they arrived at the Fishbone Diagram, which will look at it. Instead of problems and their effects appearing so big and insoluble, insurmountable, he said root cause analysis breaks down the problem into small, more easily handled and manageable chunks represented by the Fishbone Diagram. So we'll come to the Fishbone Diagram, where he has seen probably the place near the neck or the head of the fish could be the problem statement. Then when you come to the root cause analysis, then the bones that are very close to the main spine or the backbone of the fish, you call them the main causes. Maybe the first whys when you come to the 5 whys. Then as you have other secondary or subsidiary causes, then they can come as branches of those main bones, and we'll look at it later. Then let's look at my favorite. Of course, we say there is no clear way of defining it. It's a definition by Volley, Tico, and they define the root cause analysis as they have said it's an objective because there is some objectivity in it. It is a thorough and a disciplined methodology employed to determine the most probable. He's not giving it a definite term. He's saying you can have many root causes of a problem and you can come up with many solutions, but even the best of your solution may not be 100% cure of your problem. So he has talked about that a thorough disciplined methodology employed to determine the most probable He's not definite. Underlying causes of a problem, because you could leave others. Complex and desirable event within an organization with the main aim of formulating or agreeing corrective action to at least mitigate. He has not committed. If you cannot eliminate, at least you should be able to mitigate, if not eliminate, those causes, and so produce significant long-term performance improvement. What I like about him, he said, we are looking for the most probable. You cannot maybe fix it to the last 100% or zero. And we're also coming up with the most significant way of mitigating, if not eliminating, the problem. Then finally, the three brothers, we have the Robert Latino, the Kenneth Latino, and Mark Latino. They've written a book about RCA guidance document, DOE guidelines, and they have defined it as an investigation. They were, as I said, then they learned from the experience. So when they encountered the problem in their organization, what they did, they went into thorough investigation and reporting the causes. That once you do an in-depth investigation into a problem, then you report the causes of the occurrence to enable the identification of the corrective action adequate to prevent recurrence and thereby protect the health and safety of the public, the workers, and the environment. For them, it's more, it was more limited to reliability issues or the issues of safety. So what was really key for them was the safety of the public and the employees. It was all about how we'd carry out our issues to avoid causing more damage in terms of the safety risk. They were more of risk about the risk experts, and that's why they ran the company called the reliability. And then they were looking at it from what maybe we normally see our risk and compliance officers looking at. It is coming with the risk framework, looking what are the possible risks, what are they likely to cause, what is the probability, and what kind of harm it is of high magnitude, and especially to the public and the workers. So they were more of safety conscious kind of fellows. So those are the three definitions about RCA. And I think now we can clearly see the aspect of root cause analysis. Of course, we have talked about the scientific or the systematic process of drilling to the root cause of the issue. We've talked about investigating into the matter and also looking at the most probable cause in those definitions, what I've picked, and what is the most significant solution that we can come up to eliminate, if not to actually mitigate or have some measures to stop the recurrence or the magnitude or the repetitiveness of the root cause of the issues, if we cannot eliminate, to get to a viable solution. And I think you'll see that definition also relating to when we come to Pareto analysis, that we'll see maybe majority of our problems have been caused by very small elements, like 20%, but they cause a huge impact, like 80%, when we come to what we call the Pareto analysis. Any question before we look at the importance? Any question? Any comments? Just put your comments. Let's hear anything that you need me to clarify before we go to the importance. And comments, contribution, any addition that you want us to add? Or you're good to go? Okay, let's proceed. So the next thing we are going to look at is why do you think root cause analysis is really important? What are the benefits? Why is it important for us to go into the root cause of analysis? It takes time. Probably it takes more effort. It may maybe take more resources to be able to drill down rather than just coming with patchwork, quick fixes, the microwave solution. Give me 2 or 3 importance or the benefits of doing a thorough root cause analysis in an organization. It's just like in a personal level. What happens when someone starts complaining of a headache when you go to a hospital, and a major hospital like Aga Khan? Probably you're just having a migraine, and then the doctor will ask you, is it on the left side, the right side? Is it from the back? Is it from the foresight? if we just give, maybe we go to the pharmacy, and maybe this is something that has been continuing for a week or two, and we just say, just give me mara moja, give me Panadol. Then you are relieved temporarily. Then after a few hours, then you pop in some more Panadols, some more mara moja. But this becomes persistence. And probably you're just trying to treat the symptoms, but not the main root cause of that issue. And that is why we see when you go to the hospital, the doctors will start asking you some investigative questions, some inquiry, in-depth question. When did this start? What time of the day? What medication have you been taking? Because they say with the temporary measures and mitigations you've taken, it seems that it's repetitive, it's recurring, it's not stopping. So the next thing they'll do is send you maybe for a test. They might send you for a blood test to see if there is an infection in your blood. The next thing, if they can't find anything, they're likely to send you for an X-ray, probably of the head. And they say, what is happening? If they can still find anything, and the headache is persisting, and now maybe escalating to other problems like backache, then you could have maybe issues of blurry vision. They might end up even sending you to a MRI. Then if MRI doesn't work, maybe a head scan. And before you know it all, it could be a big thing that is underlying. Now that's why you start hearing issues like there's a tumor somewhere, there's a clot somewhere. But all you could feel, it's probably headache, going to a blurry vision, maybe some swollenness. So you can see, if we just continue, I know if I take Panadol within 5 minutes, it will disappear, then it will come again. Maybe it's just fatigue. If all those now becomes negative. So we are trying to drill into the root cause of analysis. Other issues, majority of us, your parents, your child is not performing so well in school. You say, is it the school? Is it the child? What is it? Or you just say, this child is not even interested in learning. Do we go to the root cause of analysis? Let's see the comments. I've seen some chats coming in. Thank you. You're saying that RCA enables organization to have an actual solution to problems and to reduce the recurrence of the problem. Perfect. That's a very good importance. Any other? How we've looked at it? What are the importance of the root cause analysis? It also enables us to actually look at where we want to invest. Instead of investing a lot into something that is unknown, something that is so wide, something that is so wild, through root cause analysis, we are able to drill to the main root cause of the issue, and then we can invest all our effort, our energies, and also maybe our money into that to deal with a specific issue rather than dealing with a lot of issues. So let's look at what we have prepared over and above that in terms of the root cause. So we are saying, why root cause analysis? So we say, so why should anyone conduct a root cause analysis? Most of the time, people as well as organizations are interested in getting problem at hand solved through the quick fixes. Then we say, as long as the problem gets handled in the present time and the work gets done, most of the people, as we say, do not bother about the future. And they don't think whether they have eliminated the problem from its root and stopped it from recurring again. So we keep on having these recurrences. So we are saying such short-term focuses normally are very expensive, and they affect maybe the profitability and also the growth of the organization, because they are not able to run efficiently and effectively as we would have desired. And then we are saying, most of us, we normally concentrate on removing the impact or the effects of the problem rather than the real causes of the problem. And from there, we are saying this can be done by drilling down, digging deep to reach the core of the problem and finding the root cause of the problem. And then you say you can then focus on removing this root, which will serve as a preventive measure to prevent the problem from recurring. So the essence is actually to mitigate or to eliminate that problem from recurring so that we are able to solve it and maybe move to a better productivity. Then we say, finally, that conducting a root cause analysis will help you get into the root cause of the problem by following a series of logical steps. We say it is systematic through a proper defined process. Then we say it helps you to adapt a structured approach to problem solving and prevent the problem from occurring again. That is the essence. So let's look at the steps. So basically we have 5, we can call them broadly 5 steps for conducting root and cause analysis. And I'll not dwell so much on this because they are not so different from what we learned yesterday. Of course, yesterday when you were looking at the root cause analysis, and also on Tuesday, we looked at how many steps did Catherine tell us about? She talked about 5 problem-solving problems. The processes. She talked about defining the problem, analyzing the potential causes of a problem. She talked about drawing conclusion, making recommendation, and also taking the best approach. So for us, we're also going to look at 5 steps for conducting root cause analysis, and they are very near similar. So I'll not use a lot of time into that. So for me, the 5 steps, I'll summarize it as follows. The first 5 steps of conducting root cause analysis, of course, first is to specify the problem situation. Once we are able to clearly define the problem, what is the problem that we are trying to cure? And this problem definition is the most critical. So mostly we will dwell on it, because if you get it wrong in terms of specifying the problem situation or defining the problem, then that is where you go wrong. So in your problem definition, we said we must take it from the SMART approach. We must be very specific about the problem. It must be measurable problem. It must be, even what we are trying to solve, it must be attainable and real. So we must apply what we all call in performance management, the SMART rules or the SMART approach in the problem definition. Then once you have gotten it right in the problem definition, then you have to understand the problem. Yes, the problem is customers are not able to make their orders online, like the case for Ecomat. Or the customers are not able to complete their application. The system is down. That becomes the problem. Then we really have to understand, what does that entail? So the next step is to understand the problem. What does that entail? What are the facts? Is it just one client who has complained, or is it cross-cutting to all the customers? And you can see from the call center, it's like all the customer complaints that were being logged on that day, they were just about inaccessibility of the system for the case of Ecomat. Then, how many people have complained so far? And it's the same narrative. So that is a real problem that we have. What are the data? Then, from there, what do? Of course, now we have to call in for the synergy of someone from the call center, because you can see the phones are beeping. Those people are really stressed. And the customers on the other side feel they're helpless, because even the customer care we are calling, they're not helping us. So you come up for objective brainstorming about this problem. And I said, for you to clearly understand the problem, the users are very critical. The people in the call center, the people who are selling, even people who are in the stores, there is no movement of merchandise today. So the people in ICT, both the primary and the secondary, maybe Rick and Peter had people who are working behind them. So we need to look at it objectively to be able to understand. That will become our step number 2. Our step number 3 maybe is to take prompt action at the heat of the moment. For us just to unclog this, what do we have to do to actually come up with what we call the preliminary solutions that will take us back to operations? At least there's some ray of hope that we can have few people starting to log in, they're able to apply, then we start coming to delivery. What do we do at the spur of the moment? The quick fixes that we can come as we look at the deeper issues. Then after that, we take preventive measures. We look at the issues now in depth. And then finally, we establish our solutions that we have said. Can we come up with very clear handover policies? Can we come with documentation? How do we deal with it in the future? And then we entrench them. So basically, those are the 5 steps that we look at. So specify the problem. I said, let's use and apply the SMART rules. So we ensure that as we are defining the problem, they must be specific, measurable, action-oriented. The kind of problem you're saying, is it something that we can act on? Is it action-oriented? Is it realistic again? Is it time constrained? As you can see for EcoMart, actually the system were down from 9:30 to about 3:30. Those are the operational hours and the most effective hours for you to make any. And those hours actually cost a lot of business, a lot of frustrated customers, a lot of profitability issues. So those are things that you look at. And then we say, as you're applying the SMART rule, I think I've really emphasized that it will enable us to ensure that you have first identified all the problems correctly and have looked at it from the possible angles. So you will not start complaining the customer people or the people who are handling calls have mishandling the customers, because actually even them, they are frustrated. The systems are not working. Then it also makes sure that the defined problem is very clear in our mind. It is very accurate. And then you can conduct what we call the root cause analysis process without having to later realize that we began going to the wrong place. Because let's say you say, I want to walk for 500 kilometers today. Then you start taking a different direction. You will realize too late when you've gone too far and you've used a lot of resources and energy and also the effort. Then it says defining the problem will also pave the path as to how the root cause analysis will proceed the first steps forward. I say the second step is to understand the problem. So we say after you define, now you understand. And this actually ensures when you're trying to understand the problem, you remove the personal biases and the perceptions that do not misinterpret the problem wrongly. People could have rushed to say, it is because Rick is not in. It is because we hired a very incompetent employee, Peter. But how was his induction done? That could also be a root cause. Was he trained on the job? Or was he just inducted on the secondary database? Then the other thing that you'll see as we go into reading about the root cause, it is for you when you're dealing with business problems, we also have to look at the interconnectivity of the system. So of course you have to look at the problem on its own. Here the issue is, it was actually the application database. But how is it interconnected and related to the other people in the business? Even as they are doing the induction, the training, and the process flow, it should not be separate that they primarily have their own document. Then the secondary database people have their own, because these people are intertwined. The system are aligned that the failure of one would affect the operation of the other. So that connectivity and the system of the business need to be clearly understood. And that's why we are saying also the objectivity. Again, when you're doing the understanding the situation, there is need to check each aspect of the problem rationally and also diligently. And then we also need to find the real data of the problem, maybe from the people in the customer service, and collect all the information about this problem we are dealing with, so that we have a clear understanding of the real issues that you are dealing with. Then we can use brainstorming for people from different departments, especially the front facing or the people who've been affected by the issue. After now we have defined the problem, we have understood the problem is very clear in the mind, then take the prompt, what I've said, the quick fixes to resolve the problem at the spur of the moment. Then from there, remember that this step just offers a temporary quick fix to the problem for the time being, and permanent steps will need to be taken to completely eliminate the problem from recurring so that it doesn't recur again. I like what Polycarp said. You could also put, if it cannot be eliminated, that the way the setup of this system is, it has a bug that cannot be eliminated and we have to live with it, then why don't you put triggers on the system so that as the logs are filling up at 70%, we already have triggers on what to do, those alerts that the system is about to be please action for us to be able to action. So after you have done that, you've had your quick fixes, then you have to take the preventive action steps, which are now more permanent, and you go into the deep and find the most probable underlying root cause of the problem and create solutions. Then we say corrective actions will definitely help you to prevent the problem from recurring in future. And finally, once you have had the temporary fixes, now you have the core fixes again, then we need to entrench that. Entrenchment of the solution into the system. Whether you need to change the policy, let the policy be changed. If there are procedures and the process flows that have to be put in place, let them be documented, let them be approved and entrenched into the system. Those are basically the 5 steps. Mostly, this is where we drop the ball. We go all through that, but then we forget to fix our policies, put our documentation, have it approved, have it implemented, have it also tested to ensure that the solutions we are putting in place, they're actually watertight. Again, it also depends with the attitude of the management and the management style, that if actually the solutions we've put here today will work for our tomorrow. So we say we should always keep in mind that this is one of the most crucial or critical steps in the root cause analysis, how you close it. Don't leave it with some loose ends. And people tend to ignore that. I think the 5 steps are very clear. Just to sum it again, is problem definition, all specifying the problem situation. After you have done that, try to understand the problem situation. And this is where we talked about using the facts, the data, the objectivity, the brainstorming, and removing all the biases and hearing from the horse's mouth. After you've done that, we said, take prompt, temporarily fixes to fix that. Then take the preventive and thorough root cause analysis. And finally, we agreed, we established the solution so that this does not recur and we remove the problem. Any questions so far? Let me hear comments, additions. I want to hear from you so that it's not me who is talking. You can put them on the chat. Let me hear.
Hi, Rhoda.
Hi.
So far we're together.
So far you're together. It's clear. Yeah. Yeah. And you can see how this is interrelated with what we are looking at problem solving.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a direct correlation. And this is just a way to ensure that the solution we give is actually for the actual problem, because we tend to look at the surface of things.
Glad. I'm happy to hear that. Any other comment? Let me look at my chat. That's good. That is fair enough. So now we can move to the next step. I think we are doing very well in terms of also the time and the graphs. Instead of going slide by slide, I think when we try to internalize this, it becomes very easy for us. So then we are going to look at how do we use root cause analysis for boosting productivity. Again, this one I'll look at it from the organization level and also to the individual level. And when I look at root cause analysis and how we spend our time and how we achieve our goals and maybe our strategy, it is how successfully we look at it. And then, of course, it's coming at the right time when it's at the end of the year, when we are looking at maybe some of the resolutions we made at the beginning of the year, some of the plans, even amid the corona virus pandemic. We came up with very ambitious goals. We came up with very smart objectives in terms of the organization or also personal development. How far? We have few days to the end of the year. Then we go into the new year, which is the year 2022, the year of the Lord. How far have we gone? Have we looked at, I intended to have bought a house. I intended to have bought a plot. I intended to have enrolled for this course. And then we come and find we narrowly missed it, or we didn't get it there, or we just had a false start. And this didn't happen because nobody was buying land, nobody was buying houses. The year was bad. But are we able to go back and drill down? What was the root cause? Is it because people were not buying land? Is it people that were not buying houses? Did I have a salary cut? Or is just that mood of their hard economic times? And probably you're among the lucky people that you are never affected because your industry you're working with, probably you're in government, we didn't experience the salary cut like other people who are to go on 50% of their salary and work on shift. There are people actually who completely lost their jobs through redundancies, through retrenchment, through closure of their businesses. We've seen many businesses. So what was the real reason why I didn't achieve my targets? Was there a good reason that I didn't do? So we go into the root cause analysis. And also at the organization level, let's see how we can use this. Or maybe even that in terms of the time management, I was working home majority of the time, so I didn't have time to network. I didn't have time to do this. Let's look at how we can use this for boosting our productivity. And we look at how we operate in our organization in terms of the time management and how we also operate in an organization. So again, another 5 steps, not so hard. We'll try to make it very easy. And how I'll look at it from the 5 again steps, and maybe just to sum it up so that we have it very easy as we drill down. I've summarized them as follows. The first step, so that you are able to operate at an optimal productive level, is to maintain a log of your task for a week. And last time I talked about journaling when you come to a personal. When you begin your week, probably on Sunday, as you plan on what I will wear on Monday, what I'll do on Monday, what I'll do on Tuesday, just like the way we are doing this training. Of course, we sat and said, if we'll have a 4-day symposium, day one probably will be traveling, that is on Sunday, then we'll set up Monday. We knew what are we going to do on Monday, being the first day. Of course, we'll have the teething issues because people are just coming together, they're just joining. We are likely to have these challenges. Then what do you deal with in day 2, day 3, day 4, when you're finally closing the training? Then thereafter that, of course, we could make even considerations of, we are so near Christmas, but how we plan. Of course, when you have the annual goals and the strategy, we should be able to break them down into small chunks. We say that is the basis of the root cause analysis. What is it that I want to achieve in the first quarter, the second quarter of the year, the third quarter, and fourth quarter? Then break that down, that quarter, into the 3 months. Month 1, 2, 3. Still go to that 1 month and break it into weeks. So when you're on week 1 of January, especially when our resolutions are very clear in our mind, we say, what is it that I want to achieve in week 1? Just like the last week of the year is normally critical for everyone because it is a time for us to reflect back. What have I achieved? Where did I miss? And also it lays the foundation for the beginning of the year and how you want to launch into your new year. So for the week, are you able to maintain a log of the activities that you want to do in an entire week? Once you are able to maintain that log for your task for a week or for a month, it is the first step of rediscovering yourself and also boosting your productivity. After you maintain a log for that week, it will tell you a story. At the end of the week, what does the story tell you? That when you look back, you can say, what did I achieve for my last 1 week? What was the most significant things that I did? How does it add to propelling me to achieving the goals? You might come and find it was just a wasteful week. There is nothing I can say I did tangible that is contributing to driving and achieving my goal. Probably the issues you dealt with, did they have an impact in achieving? Were they of priority? Or maybe you just concentrated on routine things that didn't add up or didn't contribute anything to your achievement of the goal. So the first thing is maintain a log for your task for a whole week. The true picture of your work week with the timelines. How long did it take me to do all this? How much time did it consume? Did it just, maybe I was on movies, TVs the entire week, nothing. And I spent 100% of my time on it. Then probably you could have a very good week. I attended training the whole week. I spent 80% and it has helped me get my CPD points, 6 of them, and I'll be able to renew my membership. That's how you do. The next step is analyze your tasks. Among all the tasks that you have in that true picture, then categorize them in what we call, what are the high priority items and what are low priority. Then you try to give a lot of time and energy in the high priority, the things that I must do myself. That is the high priority of your core job or what you try to do. Then from there, you need to delegate the non-productive as step 3. The things that you think they are unproductive, you don't have to do. They are not high priority. They are not of high impact. They can be done by someone else. Why don't you delegate? So that you are able to concentrate maybe on the 20% that will be remaining that will give you 80% of the input. Then you concentrate on that and avoid going back to pick them. I always give an example for us, the women in the house. Probably there are so many things that are taking a lot of my quality time that I could have spent with the family trying to do, yet are things that you can delegate. Probably you can delegate going to the grocery to buy vegetables. Do you have to come late at work instead of doing things that are practical or that are more impactful? You want to go and negotiate with Mama Mboga when you can send your house girl. There are things like, are you able to delegate maybe cooking, the washing, doing some things in the house? What are the bare minimum that I have to do? Of course, there are things that you cannot delegate because you are the woman of the house. So you should be able to look at, even from the house level, what are the things that I can delegate to other people? Again, do I have to spend 2 hours into the traffic dropping children to maybe to school when you have very important tasks or most maybe productive time of your day, where you can delegate through that, maybe through hiring a school bus, enrolling them for maybe other activities that they can be picked at this time, then that time you can prepare, you can do that, or you can spend 1 hour of your time. But then it also depends how important are they to you and what are your goals. Probably it has been your goal for this year is to spend more time with the family. So you align with your goals and say, what are the ones that you can delegate and which are undelegatable? Then from there, you need to calculate the time that you're using to do those things, especially the ones that you remain with. Of course, you will find there are some things that are so routine, they are so simple, but you don't want to delegate because you want to do it yourself. So how much time are you dealing with the activities that have been left with you that you cannot delegate, whether they're very high priority or low priority, but you think these are my must do things. And then finally, prioritize. What is it that you'll start with? How much time do you want to spend on this? And what is the outcome? Those are the 5 steps which are going to improve your productivity. Very simple. I'll just run through them. So I will say, step 1, maintain a log of your tasks for the week. What does it entail? Make a list of all your tasks and activities. List the time that you would require to complete them. Then list will help you to give a true picture of your work week. Analyze, I think we have gone through that. Delegate, then calculate the time required for low priority. Then maybe the last step is very key because these are the things that are remained in your bin that you have to deal with. We say, now turn your attention to the tasks that are productive, that brings the most reward to you, and concentrate, give them the time and the effort. Then prioritize your task and concentrate most on your time on the few but high priority tasks, which you look at. Probably they'll give 80% of the reward and maybe they're just 20% of all what you have to do. Then this will help you to maximize the productivity by concentrating on productive tasks and delegate these other activities that have low returns or don't significantly affect the delivery or what you're trying to do. Then delegating the task will help you reduce your stress and do less work for greater returns. And then you can implement the root cause analysis to achieve your success in life, maximizing your productivity, better time management, and you'll become a more productive and better person in terms of achieving. That is it about the overview of the root cause analysis. Now from here, we will now look at the 3 techniques that I said, the 3 key tools or the approaches for root cause analysis that are applicable. Of course, these are specific now to root cause analysis over and above the bigger problem solving. So as I mentioned, we are going to look at the 5 why technique, and we are going to look at an example just to help us what we learned on a very high level and how we have defined it and how we can apply it in a real life. Then again, we are going to look at in depth about the Pareto analysis. And finally, since you told me you talked about the fishbone diagram, or what we call the cause effect diagram, we'll just look at a few slides and probably an example of how you come up with it. Any questions so far? Or we can proceed? I think we are doing very well. Any question, comments? So far, so good. Let me see the comments. I'm seeing comments coming in. Yes, I'll proceed. I think we are doing very well in terms of the time and the content. I think it makes it easier when we are able to elaborate this and just discuss rather than going slide by slide. So, Polycarp or Silas, tell me what you learned about the 5 why techniques, Frida. And the rest. You can type your comments. The 5 why, what did we learn from a very high perspective before we drilled into examples?
Rebecca?
Yes, you can hear. I can hear you.
Okay, so from a brief overview, 5 why is basically a process where you ask continuous whys that the response to the first why leads to the question related to the second why. And in that way, you're looking at getting to the bottom of the issue, the problem.
That is actually correct. They actually say you ask a series of questions. Why did this happen? Why did you come late? This happened. Why was this? So you keep on drilling down until they say a minimum of 5 whys that you ask. Then the answer to the preceding questions become the basis of asking the next why. Of course, there is no limit that if you haven't come to the root cause that you cannot continue beyond the 5 whys. So even beyond the 5, you can still proceed. Sometimes you may just even close just before the 5 why, but actually why we say the 5, it will have given you enough depth. You have gone deeply into it to actually dig into the real issues that could be underlying, because we say issues could be many so that we don't leave any that is unattended. And we say some of the difficulties or the challenges of the root cause analysis is when we don't get all the root cause of the root causes of an issue. That you may go, then you get tired at 3, but there are still some 2 hidden one, or one more that you could have drilled further that is still left there. And you see, like we say in a bag of potato, one particular rotten potato can actually cause the whole bag of the potatoes to go bad. So you can imagine if you leave that one issue unattended, it can still water down all the solution and all the investment and all the effort you've put on the other causes that we have looked at. So that is very good. Let's continue. Yes, I've read all the comments. So the 5 why technique, I don't know if she said it's also known as the Gembagabutsu approach. And that is originating from the person, the founder of this phrase, who is Japanese, and that is where the name came from, and it means place and information. And we say the 5 why techniques in root cause analysis, you have to ask a series of questions to identify the sequential cause of the failure that leads to the problem. And then we say then next you have to find the cause effect failure path to the whole of those 5 questions. So you have to keep on asking why questions to find out each preceding trigger till you reach the root cause of the incident. And we can say you can use the 5 why technique effectively to handle simple root cause analysis. So it's a very simple tool. It's not so scientific. You can use it to deal with simple issues for root cause analysis. Then we say the 5 why techniques will help you to find a cause effect relationship between the different parts of the problem, why one thing is affecting. You can remember, like in the EcoMat, why was the system going down? Why was it returning a 500 error? Because the application, the application database was not working. And why was it not working? It was timing out. Why was it timing out? It was timing out because the associated database was not working. Why was it not working? Because of high traffic, because it was clogged, because it has to be removed manually. And someone will ask, why was it not then the logs removed manually? Because Peter didn't understand. The other question is, why didn't Peter not understand? Probably there was no handover. There was no documentation. He didn't know. That is now how we apply the why. So you can conduct a 5 why technique for root cause analysis without using an elaborate worksheet. You don't need many diagrams. You don't need flowcharts. And it does not entail a large detailed investigation like we could see in other, like Pareto analysis, requiring many resources. It is simple. It can be used for simple problems. It can be applied by anybody, anywhere. You don't need a lot of knowledge in terms of that. And we say it is a very simple, stress-free method to reach the root cause of a problem. So let's look at the problem. It's just the process. It's what we have explained, the 5 steps. The first one, we say, start with the problem statement of the problem. And we say this is the very critical. The first and the last stages are very critical, because if you don't define your problem properly, then you're not like you're likely to misdiagnose, and we are not able to reach. So after you start asking the problem, the statement, and ask why it occurred. Why is this occurring? Then from there, you move to the second step, which we are saying, then use the answer sheet to the first why question and turn it into the second, why did this happen? Then like that, you repeat to the last. Then let's look at a real life example that I want us to look at so that we are able to understand what we are dealing with. And Polycarp, are you able to read for us? Are you in a position to read?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, please read for us the I think there are about 5 slides on this example.
Rickson Food and Beverages has several products in its product line, including different kinds of instant food as well as juices. One of its most popular products is a mixed fruit juice called Fresh Energy. Recently, there has been a rise in demand for fresh energy. However, Rickson has been unable to ship out 3 large shipments to retailers across the country. The failed shipments have caused Rickson to face huge losses. Nick Fallerton, the supply chain head, has been asked by Rickson's management to provide valid reasons as to why the shipments were not delivered. Nick knows that to be able to provide a satisfying answer and to get to the root cause of the problem, he would need to conduct a thorough analysis of the problem situation.
So let's look at the...
Nick starts by asking the why questions for each problem and conducts the analysis as follows.
Now take us through the root cause.
Okay.
The first why?
Yes. The first why being, why were 3 large shipments of fresh energy to retailers across the country not sent? The answer was because there was no stock of one of the key ingredients required to make fresh energy, so the juice could not be made.
The second why?
The second why is, why was there no stock of one of the key ingredients required to make fresh energy? The answer is because the last 2 shipments from the supplier of the ingredients were not received due to a problem at the supplier side, and there was no inventory kept of the ingredient at Rickson started. There's no kept of the ingredient as Rickson started following just-in-time GIT system of supply chain management. The third why being, why did Rickson not order the ingredients from another supplier? The answer is there are no contracts in place for backup suppliers of the ingredients in case the primary supplier fails to deliver. Fourth one is, why was the restocking of the ingredients not done earlier before reaching zero stocks? The answer is the trigger for reordering an inventory has been set too late, as the new just-in-time system has just been implemented in Dixon since the last few months, and people are not very adept at it. The stocks were supposed to last for at least 2 months.
And the final why? Why
did the ingredient stock finish earlier than expected? Due to the high demand and sales of the fresh energy owing to the extremely hot summer this year.
Is this something familiar with our workplaces where we work? And probably you could, before you stop, Polycarp, you could give us, what are some of the possible solutions with all these 5 whys?
So to me, this is very familiar. Having my background in FMCG. I currently manage an FMCG contract with a brewery. Yes. And this happens a lot where so the planning team is usually engaged with doing market survey and analyzing both inbound and outbound logistics, just to ensure that the stock is not depleted. Then the planning team is supposed to prompt procurement on what the market says and what the market feels for procurement to action. Now, if there's any bottleneck or any misalignment in between, we usually arrive situations where either the inbound or the outbound, there's a point where there's a lag. A case in point, in 2020, in July, there was a lockdown. So the assumption was there will not be as much sales of beer and UDV, that's the spirits, because Nairobi was actually locked down. But the contrary was true. The fact that Nairobi was locked down, the sales were crazily high in the middle of the year. Yeah, so
because people started drinking in their houses.
Exactly, and it brought to, so there's something called THT. THT is take home trade. So take home trade is where you buy from the supermarket and you go home with it. Take home trade went extremely high to an extent where supermarkets like Carrefour and Naivas, their weekend stock, the stock for Friday and Saturday would be depleted by Wednesday.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had to adjust, knowing that Kenyans is not a matter of if they drink, it's when.
It is when they drink, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a very good example, and I'm happy that we can reckon with what is happening, and maybe some of you are able to drill down to the root cause of, you thought the curfew, what was the reason why you think it will not move? I think the same case here, because they thought now the normal supply they normally have and the normal consumption is what will continue. But they didn't even have a very proper focus that during the summer season, the demands will also go high. Again, they relied and over-relied on one supplier, that if we didn't have a backup for this supplier, in case they fail to deliver, then there's a backup plan. And that backup plan also actually called for other departments like the legal department, the procurement department. Did you requisition for an alternative supplier for these products? Did you have a contract in place? What does it entail? So until we are able to look at the real root cause, maybe probably you could say we could go for single sourcing or any other available as a quick fix. But in terms of the looking at the preventive measures from that recurring, we have to look for other suppliers who are pre-qualified, sign contracts with them, so that in case such a hitch ever recur now, we should be able to turn to the next tender, we move on. So let's look at some of the solutions that came up from here. So after the above analysis, Nick knew the root cause of the failure to deliver the shipment to the retailer, and it could not be blamed on one person like the procurement manager. And he presented the cause and the possible solutions to the management of Rickson as follows, because he was aware of the root cause analysis. So he just didn't give out the issues only. I'm sure there were very objective, well-thought solutions that accompanied that. So the issues that he looked at, the causes was the management of the whole supply chain, even the people learning the system, the material was an issue, the method was an issue, the people involved, that's the team, the environment, and also the machine could be some of the possible causes of issues we have in the workplaces. So Polycarp, your hand is up. Kindly continue.
Yes, yes. It's just a quick question.
Yes.
How he has highlighted the cause and linking it to the factors. It comes out as a bit of a fishbone.
The way he's linking. No, he's just putting it as what could be the causes of all this.
Oh, okay.
Because you can see he does not have now the branches to that. It's just the way they're coming in his mind and saying, what could have caused this? Is it the way the management has dealt with their suppliers? Could it be the management of the supply chain? Were there maybe breakage of the machine, maybe from the vendor's point? Maybe the supplier, was there a machine breakdown for them not to supply? Were they given the orders? Who was supposed to give the order? I think he's just writing a big solution before narrowing down to the others that could have come. And we'll see how we link both. Of course, they're closely. So no stock of one of the key ingredients to make fresh energy. Primary supplier failed to deliver shipment of the ingredients on time as expected. Why did he fail? There was no, because you can see, even from him, why did he fail? There was no inventory maintained for the ingredients of Rickson. Started following just-in-time system of the supply chain method. So the machines now comes in. Could it be the system, the machines that didn't give us a trigger that he's trying to brainstorm? Then he say no contract in place for backup suppliers of the ingredients if the primary supplier fails to deliver, and he could have failed. What if the supplier had closed down? What if they had been bought? What if they had changed their mind? The trigger for reordering an inventory has been set too low as per the new just-in-time system that they're using. Then no forecast was done to predict the high demands and sales of fresh up owing to the extreme hot summer this year. So in terms of the men, who are the people in the marketing? Who are the people in the research? Who are supposed to do the projection? Who was responsible, maybe even to have backup? That's how he's asking himself. Then the solution, now he has come to the real solution. He say, nominal amount of inventory stock should always be maintained for the key ingredients, but maintained by who? To make fresh energy. Then have backup suppliers ready to order the key ingredients if the primary suppliers fail to deliver shipment on time as expected, which could be caused by various factors. Then tweak or maybe just adjust to make the existing just-in-time system more efficient. Also, you can see even the people that are still struggling to learn this system because it's new. So there is need for more training and the capacity building for the people who are using the new system. Then he also say we need to set triggers for reordering an inventory early to order restock before ingredients get stocked out. Then again, he has said use proper forecasting analysis tool to predict the high demands and sale of the fresh energy owing to weather changes. It is summertime, demands could fluctuate, and then be able to meet the rise in the demand just in time. And you can see now he's doing his analysis. He has come up with many causes, cause one. So he's asking why, then moving to the next why. What would cause that? Then going to the third why. You can see he has 5 whys. He's asking maybe why, then this why, then has getting the cause, then getting to the root cause analysis. So we are saying from that example, you can see that Nick could use the root cause analysis to get the root of the problem and find the practical solutions to the problem. Is it clear now, Polycarp?
Yes, it is. And also, just from a participation perspective, I don't know if you can upgrade the team to panelists because there are 4 attendees.
There are 4 attendees, but then are you in the meeting? I can see the 4 attendees, but I'm not able to move them to this other side. Could you see? I'm actually not able to see them from my end, but I can see there are 4 who are waiting on the queue. If Dan is still in the meeting, then you could help us do that. There are 4 people who are on the other side who would want to really participate on this other side. But in the meantime, they can still continue posting their chat as we proceed. Yeah, we can, then it's going to do that as we go. I can see them, but I'm not able to move them to my end. Actually, I'm not able, I can see the 4 attendees, but I couldn't see their names apart from one who is also engaged from the chat conversation. So we are now at, I think we've done justice to why, the 5 whys, and now we are going to move to Pareto analysis. So I need to be guided. Dewey, it's 10:20, so we are almost, my intention is to stop at 12. Do we need a 5-minute break, or do we continue and we finish early? Let me hear. I normally like to respect the participants, how they feel. Should we take a 5-minute break, then we resume? Should we take a break, then we come back? Or should we continue so that we finish maybe early? Before we move into now we are left with the Pareto analysis, which is quite a bit extensive. Then we look at the fishbone. Then finally, just some difficulties, and also to give tips on how we can do an effective root cause analysis. Let me hear from the charts. Can we continue, please, if it's okay? For me, it's okay. Frida is saying we continue. So we continue, then we finish early. That's okay. So that we don't interrupt the flow. We are getting it. Dan has managed to add some the people on the panelists. Thanks, Dan, for that. So as we continue, he'll keep on checking the attendees list so that he can add. So welcome. So let's go to Pareto analysis. And Pareto analysis is also what we call the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule, and it was originated from a social concept where the founder was arguing that 80% of the resources or the land were owned by only 20% of the population. So he was looking at the disproportionate in terms of how maybe the impact or the effects is not proportionate to what happens. So when you come to root cause analysis, how we use the 80-20 rule, it is like we can find like 80% of our problems that we are trying to resolve could have been caused by very few elements, like 20%. So if you're able to deal with the very few high priority causes of this issue, it is likely to resolve 80% of our troubles or the problems that you are going to resolve. So the Pareto Principle states that 20% of the input or the time, the resources or the effect or the problem we are trying to solve will account for 80% of the output in terms of the resolution, the results, the reward, and also the solutions. That is how it relates to the root cause analysis. This means that whatever it is a business or an individual, you get 80% of your results from just 20% of your time and effort. That you can do so much, but when you're able to align yourself to the very few priority areas, it is likely to yield a lot of results. So what I like about also the Pareto analysis, it is also not giving 100% of the solution. So when you come up with doing, as we look at the steps, the Pareto analysis, and you clearly define your problem, you'll be able to see what is the biggest problem that we have. And then when you narrow down to the solution and the possible, you'll have so many alternative solutions, but then you narrow down that if you're able to pick the two, it will resolve most of the challenges. And then you give a lot of time and energy to that. So what it means that 80% of your errors will occur from just 20% of your activities maybe we are doing wrong. And then well, you realize that it becomes very easy for you. So let's look at some of the issues or the principles behind this. It also said on the fourth point that every organization and individual can use the 80-20 rule, or what we call the Pareto Principle, to reduce or eliminate its useless activities, the errors, the defects, and can significantly improve or boost the productivity. The other thing we need to note that the 80-20 rule, or what we're calling the Pareto Principle, help us to focus on those activities that brings us the highest of the returns and also cause the maximum errors. And that is why we looked at how do we actually boost our productivity using the root cause analysis, that if we are able to know where to focus our energy, then we'll have sorted most of our issue. And implementing strategy based on the 80-20 rule can lead to increased productivity, maximized profits. It can also give us time for, greater leisure time. Just a minute. Leisure time, and also in terms of the overall improvement of the way everyone works. So that would be my great overview. Then we can see how this is applicable and what is the implication of this Pareto. So we look at a few examples in our workplace, and I want you to tell me whether you agree with this or you disagree in our workplaces. And I can see everybody said we continue. Naomi, Helen, Priska, I'm happy Dan has brought a majority of the people back. Priska, so thank you very much. Let's continue let's participate more. From the statements that I'll make, I want you to look at back in your workplaces or in your individual life and tell me whether you agree with that statement or not. This might affect us because we are many, especially now we are in HR and you are many staff. So the first implication is that 80% of work is produced by 20% of the people. That when you look at an organization or when you form a team, we all have, whether it's at classwork, in the focus group, when we go into a group or a team, ultimately at the end of the exercise, 80% of the work, maybe even the compilation and the final report, will only be done by 20% of the people. Who agrees with this statement? 80% of the work is produced by 20% of the people. That even when you come to an organization and we say we have performed, majority or 80% of that output will only have come from 20% of your staff. Anyone who want to agree or disagree with me? Frida is agreeing with me. Who has a contrary opinion? Majority of you seem to be agreeing with me. So let's continue. The second statement is, for people who are in the fast moving goods or who are in a business environments where we have sales team, the statement says that 80% of the sales volume, or even you have outsourced vendors, of an organization comes from 20% of the distributors only. We agree? Yes, there is some concurrence. I can see on the chart. This is extremely true on statement 2. The other statement we have is 80% of the results are achieved by 20% of the effort. That you can put all the effort, but only 20% of your effort will give 80% of the results. Again, that is true. Let's continue. The other statement we have is 80% of income you earned is earned by 20% of the workforce who are the actual performers. The rest are just spectators, support, but 80% of that income just comes from 20% of the workforce. I think that is related to the sales, is also related to the performance. Again, 80% of the income of an individual comes from 20% of what you do. 80% of your income comes from what is it that you work in your workplace? Where is it that you put a lot of effort? But 80% of your income will only come from 20%. I'll give an example. What goes into the preparation and facilitation even for a training like this? I would say 80% of that maybe will only come from the last delivery. Because you can imagine, if you do all the preparation, which is 80%, and you just show up the last minute, and that training does not take place, all that will be futile. So you can imagine only that 20% of the last, whether it takes place or doesn't take place, it was will determine the 80% of the income. Even in your real life, you can decide. You can cook, you can do all that, but let's say the people who are in the hotel industry or hospitality, the kind of work that goes into preparing a meal, you have to go to a Wakulima market, buy all the groceries, come, prepare them, clean them, prepare them, put. If actually that food get burnt at the last minute, that means you can present it to the customer. That is what we say, 80% of the income of the individual comes from 20% of what he does. Then 80% of the marketing results will achieve 20% of the marketing. Then in terms of application, where can we apply these principles? This principle can be widely applied in many sectors of our life. When you're dealing with time management, you've talked about that the output will come from maybe just 20% when you have just hit the bullseye. Time management, maximizing your productivity and how you do your key priorities. We said, learn to prioritize and analyze your key activities, which are the ones that are yielding high returns. Concentrate on that, because if you concentrate on everything, it's only 20% of that will yield 80% of the returns. You can use that in terms of achieving sales target. That all the promotions activity you'll do, it's only 20% of that promotion activities that will drive the achievement of the results. Then in critical mistake analysis and also customer relationship management, that maybe 80% of the complaints will only come from a section of 20 people. Or the number of customer complaints you receive, it will only have come from 20% of the errors or the defects, or just one activity that can blow out the customer complaints. Then we are applying it in the root cause analysis and also in social science. We can say 80% of the wealth in this country, actually, it's just in the pockets of 20% of the people of the population. Do you agree with it from the social perspective? Or 80% of the land in this country is just owned by 20% of the families of the whole population in the country. Who is agreeing with these applications? Inventory and purchases, that even the people who are in the procurement, among all the many items, let's say they have 100 items that they order and they are in the stores, probably it is only 20% of those things that are so useful and they move and they go into the operations of the organizations. Others could be just pens, books, newspapers, but what are the ingredients that actually drives the operations of that if we miss this, will not be in operation? Someone has said it's extremely true that 80% of the land is owned by 20% of the people in this country. Or even, you'll find even the founder of this Pareto actually was not in Kenya, was not in Africa. But that is the basis of making that principle. It can be used in marketing. It can be used in people and productivity. When you're talking about the performance management, we normally even see the bell curves that we normally force in the performance. And you'll understand that even in a department, we only have some key drivers in terms of the people who, even in group works. This can be used in Six Sigma methodology. It is useful in management and also in the economy. So this is how we apply the Pareto analysis. Again, We are saying applying Pareto analysis during the root cause analysis to errors and defects helped us to understand that a disproportionately large percentages of the errors or the problems that we experience in the organization or defects in any processes are usually caused by relatively very few problems. And I'll pause here and give an example that we always say the organizational culture and the management style also determines how well and how effective we resolve our issues. It could be we have all the processes, we have all the policies in the organization, but how the organization culture affect how we resolve our issues at the workplace is our downfall. Culture actually forms a very small percentages. How we recruit, how we do other, whether people have godfathers, what we condone in terms of not the values we put on the walls or our strategic plan, but our behaviors in our organization can actually determine the success or failure of an organization and how well we resolve the issues and the bureaucracies we have in the organization. A wise man said that an organization culture eats the strategy for breakfast and for dinner. Do you know how big a strategic plan is that we plan for 5-10 years, how we're going to drive the business? But an organization culture can erode all the gains we have. That's also an application of the Pareto analysis. Then we say Pareto analysis helps to identify the most significant few errors that if we don't get it right in our organization culture, however much methods and the technique and the scientific performance tools we bring into an organization, it will never work, nor all the problems so that they can be targeted for corrective and for resolution. Any questions so far? I want to hear the comments. Any comments? Any clarification as we proceed? For those who are able to unmute, let's hear. I'm also looking at your comments so we can proceed. That means it's clear. And so let's look at some of the statements for us to be able to understand this. And these ones we read as we go so that we can be able to now go into, of course, the diagrams and the charts. Those ones, they are basics, just the way we draw them in Excel. I may not so dwell in them. So we will just continue and just try to understand the basics. Wonderful content, that's Priska, so we can continue. So we are saying the following are some of the uses of Pareto analysis as a technique for root cause analysis, and we'll go through point by point so that we are able to really clearly understand and also for emphasis. And we are saying Pareto analysis is particularly useful for finding errors for problems that causes 80% of your problems in any root cause analysis process. So mostly when we want to drill into that, we want actually to get what is causing 80% of our problems that we have, for any problems that we have, even probably at an individual level. What is causing you not to advance in your career or maybe to do what you have strategized to do? So once you get the 80%, it could be just a small issue like the attitude. I have the can't do attitude. I have the attitude of negativity. I have that attitude that pulls me back and tells me the world is never fair. Of course, if you have ever thought that the world is fair, maybe that is the 80% of the problems that we have. Because the truth is, and even some entrepreneurs have said, the world has never been fair and it will never be fair. So if you have taken a disposition where you expect, I have to be treated with fairness, people have to understand that I'm really trying, that I'm very professional, I'm very good, I try, then they should be able to reciprocate and treat you the same. Then you are in for a big surprise. And probably that is the attitude that has been pulling you back because you are waiting until the world is fair. And I'll clearly tell you today, It has never been fair and it should never be fair. So we have to look out ways of dealing with it, building ourselves and seeing how to proceed. Number 2, identify, categorize, and distinguish into levels such things as errors, the defects, the delays, the customer complaints. These are indicators of there is an underlying problems, and other measures of quality. Deviations from such measures of quality in your root cause analysis process will help you identify different classes and types of the problem. So you should be able to categorize and separate, why are we having these customer complaints? What are they complaining about? Are they complaining about errors in their invoices? So the finance department has a problem. Are they complaining about the merchandise or the products that goes to them, they have defects? And then you can start asking, why the defects? Is it the staff who are not keen? Are they fatigued? Are we having operational machine breakdown? Is this the quality of the raw materials that we are using? Then there is a lot of complaints about the delays. I ordered for this item, like the people in the Ecomart, but it is coming in late, delayed. Instead of receiving it within 24 hours, I'm getting it after 5 days. What is the causes of the delay? Is it that we don't have raw materials? Is it the transport or the people who are delivering this? Do we need to look at our delivery? Is it that the products they asked had very clear specification that even getting those materials for the extra specification is taking more time? Do we have more suppliers? Then why do we have so many customer complaints? What are they? Is it that we are not picking calls? So you should be able to identify, categorize them, cluster them, and distinguish into different chunks so that you deal into what is the root cause. Then the other thing, you can also use Pareto analysis to display the results of your finding graphically. And then once now you are able to differentiate and you have these things that you can have, they could be quantifiable in measures, they could be counted, maybe the number of errors, the number of returns defect, the number of errors, the number of, so you look at those things that could be distinguished, identified, and categorized into clusters, so that then for Pareto analysis, it involves drawing of graphs and charts. So they must be identifiable in that format. Then the purpose of categorize them is so that you come up with different graphs and bars. Then you can be able to get the frequency. Once you get now the frequency, you'll be able to map an island of where they are tipping. Where is this 80%? Where is the biggest block, whether it's the biggest pie? And then you come up with the solutions. So actually one thing that is different from the why, which we said it's very simple, it is Pareto analysis actually involves drawing of graphs so that they can tell a picture. So there is identification, there is also the documentation, and there is also the visualization. You put them into the maps. You remember even in the definition of the Pareto analysis, when he talked about the Wilson poll, how he defined it, he said it is identifying them, it is documenting them, and presenting them in a visual format so that you can get the true picture and the background as you do the root cause analysis. So we proceed with that. I think now we can be able to attribute it. Then this is something that I've really been emphasizing by saying that in spite of the best root cause analysis effort and the approach that you take, you can see now Pareto is becoming very deep. The voice on top, that is the leadership of an organization. It's a real key and crucial determinant. We are saying top management is not, if they are not committed to implementing the corrective action that the problem solving team is coming with, seriously, then the root cause analysis will definitely fail and it will not succeed. And also the organization culture. Then this is just how we use the Pareto charts in the root cause analysis. You can see how the graphs are moving, and I'll just take you through. It's just the normal way we normally plot the pie charts and the bar graphs, but we need to actually understand how the bar sits when you're presenting them, that they should not touch each other. And then from what side they should move from. So we are saying a Pareto chart is a series of bars whose height reflect the frequency and the impact of the problem. It has what percentage of the impact. Then the bars are arranged in a descending order of the height from the left to the right. Then it shows that the categories represented by the tall bars on the left side are relatively more important than those on the right. So they have more impact, and that is why we need to put a lot of energy. The Pareto charts are actually histograms, or they could also be pie charts that are aided by 80-20 rule adapted by John Duran, are used to identify and prioritize the problems to be solved. So this is the first one was the histogram, then this is a pie chart. Then we say Pareto charts are used for Pareto analysis, and you can see the bigger the chart or the pie, the bigger the impact on where we should actually concentrate on. We say the first Pareto chart that you create will help you identify a significant problem that is still too big to work for. And how this normally works, once you come up with the original chart, and then you have been able to resolve most of the problems, now the remnant or what has remained, you can still classify them and still draw further charts and the flows, because now the factors and the weight will keep on changing. Because probably once you give or inject the first solution, it wipes out what was big. And then what is remaining, if you draw now a new graph or a chart, it can tell you now that has shifted. And that is now no longer a problem until you are able to have very minimum to that solution. So you can keep on drawing more charts and that. So you can say we can use Pareto charts to identify problems to work on. Then Pareto charts helps you to increase the process efficiency, to conserve the materials and the time, because you want to focus and concentrate and reduce on cost, and also increase in terms of the safety. Then the Pareto charts will be the most effective when the problem categories are used in the charts are defined by your customers. You remember I said about objectivity, removing biases, and involving the people. So we say this is most effective when they are defined by your customers, who are the people experiencing or the people at the forefront, and the person that actually uses your products or services. Because if you're talking about the product defects, when did the defects occur? Is it immediately after the purchase? Is it immediately after being utilized? So they'll be able to tell you the story and also the errors and also their experience. Then we say in terms of the Pareto frequency diagrams, we say the Pareto frequency diagram is a bar chart which displays the causes of various defects. You can remember the way we cluster them into errors, the defects, the complaints, and what have you, in order from the most frequent to the least frequent. So if something is very frequent, that should be a cause of an alarm. You should worry and try to solve the most frequent. Of course, there are some occasions you see you have some errors or some issues that are not so big, but they're not so frequent, but they're quick, they're very easy to eliminate. So you just eliminate them and you move so that you can be able to focus and concentrate through elimination. So we say Pareto frequency diagram helps to draw your attention to, so that you can focus on the most frequent problems. Always keep in mind that the Pareto frequency diagrams always show the most frequent problems, which may or may not be the most important, but are just the most frequent. So again, the other factor you need to consider, something may be more frequent, but it doesn't have a lot of impact. It could be very frequent, something happening, but the impact is very minimal. Then you could have some problems that are less frequent, but the magnitude and the impact on the business is so huge. So which one would you concentrate on? The most frequent or the most impactful? Let me hear from you. Where do you think you'll draw your energy and effort to? You can put on the charts. You can unmute if you're able to do that. I can see some comments. The most impactful. The most impactful, and that is where that's where you will concentrate on. So I can see you're together. Any question so far as we go on? And maybe just to give you a tip at this level as you bring up your question clarification is that you should use Pareto Principle on that, or what we call the 80-20 rule or the principle, as a daily reminder to focus on 80% of your time and energy on the 20% of your work that is really important. All very impactful. So remember that you should not just work smart, but work on the right thing. What is the right thing? What is it that if I do today, that I can just do one item, but I'll have been so impactful, whether I sleep the rest of the day. Yet, I can, for those, especially the ladies who at times we spend our times in the house, there are those days you just know from morning to evening, I've just been going around in circles and there's nothing I can say I did. And you can sneak into that house for 2-3 hours, but the things that you do are so impactful to the family. You went and prepared dinner, you had a chat, you had a meal together. It becomes so impactful. So we should not just work smart, like from 8. I think at times, some of us, we are lost into timing. From 8 to 5, I want to do this. It is how you spend the hours. I'll look at the emails, but what is not impactful. So those non-priority areas of the LO, you can package some time for at maybe in the day and say, I'll only check emails at this point, this point, this point, this point of the day. Then for the most productive hours in the morning, I want to deal with the most difficult activity and what will determine my performance. Even when you come to your performance plan at the end of the year, if you don't do what you targeted to do, but you've been so busy like in HR, then when you come to review yourself at the end of the quarter of the half year or the end of the year, you find, what have I been busy doing? If you're not able to align and synchronize that. Let me take comments as we move to actually just explain why do we use Pareto charts for root cause analysis. And we'll just rush through them and just see the key points. Any question? Clarity? Let me get a signal. We continue. I'm looking on the charts. I want to hear the comments. Someone has said we most impactful. Anybody who is able to unmute, write your charts. We continue. Then if there are no questions, then I will proceed. So let's look at when. Do we always use Pareto charts always? Or are there circumstances that are unique and where the Pareto analysis will be more effective than the 5 whys or the fishbone or any other scientific tool we looked at? So some of the scenarios where we can say it is very effective to use Pareto charts, it is when the data that you have to the problem can be broken down into categories and you can count in terms of the frequency. Because most of these things will be expressed in a visual, diagrammatical way. So if it is data that you cannot count, you cannot tally, you cannot be able to establish a frequency, then it will not be effective to use the Pareto charts. Then the next situation that you should be able to use Pareto charts, it is when you want to narrow down to which cause of the problem to address first. Because of the impact, that is why after you define, you really have to understand. So for you to be able to narrow down to where you want to focus your time, your energy, and your resources on, that is the best time to use the Pareto analysis, but also take into consideration point 1, because if you cannot be able to tally the data and express them in a frequency or the level or the degree, of course, it can go as deep as where you start using the weighting of the importance. That if something has this impact, we give it a bigger weighting the way we do it in a balanced scorecard so that you can be able to see that this actually carries a lot of weight. It draws your attention to the, when you want to draw your attention to the vital few, where the payback is the biggest. That is what I'm talking about. Then Pareto Principle will be very effective. Then let's proceed on what other instances. In instances where you want to actually focus on process improvement. And we are saying Pareto charts helps to point out the areas that causing 80% of the defects or the problems in your organization that leads to poor quality. Hence, you can use this chart to find out these improvement areas and hence improve the quality. Because you can imagine, if you can know what is the cause of 80% of our complaints, of our quality issues. Then you just focus on them. It becomes very easy, and the process improvement becomes very effective and also impactful. Then we say Pareto charts can be useful in RCA when you want to reach a consensus. When you've been able to reach a consensus because you are a group of many teams and you have many errors, you don't know which one to focus on, and you're trying to build a consensus, then you use the Pareto. And then you can be able to justify why we want to handle this first before the other. It is because, and it can be seen because the data don't lie, and numbers will always tell how the picture is. Then you can use it to help you identify and focus your effort into the biggest problems. And mostly these are the biggest pie, or what you call the highest bars, because the height of the bar will show you the frequency also, or the build-up in terms of the magnitude of it. Then again, you can consider using the Pareto charts when you are finding the cause that leads to 80% of the problems in what you're dealing with. And then the other point would be you can use Pareto as the best approach when you are deciding on the choice that you should be made to eliminate the problems that you have. And this is the final slide in terms of when to use it. And it talks about the following are the situations when it is useful to use Pareto, maybe just as a summary. And some of the examples we have is improving the process of increased unit readiness, when deciding the skills enhancement in your team. We talked about 20% of the people delivering the profits, the output, or the work outcome in your organization. So as HR, when you want to look at the capacity building, when you want to develop a training curriculum to improve the productivity of the people, you can use the Pareto. So this will actually show you the areas where you need to enhance the skills, also your team, because you can tell who are these high performers and who are these laggards, who are the people who need to improve. Even the issues of when you're trying to implement coaching and mentorship in the workplaces, you can be able to see the people who are not performing so well, who are average performance, who are non-performers, then they can be shadowed, or you can assign the people who are high flyers to be mentors of the people, maybe who are new into the institution, who are still struggling with their performance as you build that talent pipeline. Then the other issue will be identifying your core customer needs through the surveys and the complaints. So some of this, how you build those diagrams and the charts, you can pick data from surveys, from the customer surveys, the suggestions, the complaints, and any feedback methods that you have in your organization. It will be able to build up those data, because at times you can proactively engage the customers, but you can see this narrative of people complaining about that. Why don't you do a survey? Why don't you do maybe the analysis of the complaints that comes, because this is what feeds the data. Then again, it also helps you when you want to identify the investment opportunity, that maybe probably you have some funding, you're considering maybe expanding some line, and maybe rehabilitating some others, or maybe product development. So you're able to make that decision on the investment opportunities. And then we can say, of course, Pareto analysis or the principle can be used to set your priorities for many practical applications in your command. And I think that now answers the question, when do we use the Pareto charts and the Pareto principles? But then there's also this question, how do you use these charts? Yes, now we have gathered all the materials, we have documented all of them, but now how do we use them? So we are going to look at 2 slides that will just tell us how we can use the Pareto charts in terms of the root cause analysis. And how we can use this, probably, how do I sum it up? How? I can sum it into, of course, about how I can sum it into what I call like 7 points, just 7 points. The first one, what it's saying, it is How to use this? You want to draw attention and cooperation of all the concerned to target the most important problems effectively in equality. You can imagine you're in a management meeting and you're being put into pain to explain why you want to take this route, why you are recommending this kind of a solution. So how you can use the Pareto charts? You use these diagrams and what you have after you have done the root cause analysis to draw the attention and the cooperation of your other stakeholders into agreeing with your recommendation. Then the other instance is like you can use it as the basis to divide and conquer the problem, and you are able to prioritize which one to tackle first and which one can wait and which one need a lot of effort. Then you can use the map as what I called earlier, the island hoop. Island hoop is when you have those histograms. You see the way the frequency and the bars are rising, you can be able to put a hoop or a circle on. This is the pain point. This is 80% of our area. You use that island hoop to actually demonstrate where you need to put your focus on. Then the fourth point, we can just say, it is, you can use small problems that are easy to fix should be fixed fast. As I said, as much as we are concentrating on the 80%, of course, we have what we call the quick fixes, as we saw is the third step that you have. Before you deal with the other preventive measures that is looking for a long-term solution and may involve a lot of time and resources because we want to focus, if there are those low-hanging fruits, the quick fixes that you can easily fix, it is always advisable to fix them on the spot and move on. Anything that you can close those gaps and move on. Then the other thing is you need to create a new Pareto chart after every closure or fixing of the problems. I think I emphasize that once you've been able to fix and you feel like you've done 60% of the problem or 80%, we said one of the challenges of root cause analysis is when you don't deal with all the root causes. So once you've been able to fix the biggest chunk, you can also develop under new Pareto, and there will be an alignment, and it will show you now the new direction or the new focus on the new area of the concentration, because our intention is to eliminate and to avoid repeat of such problems or the errors when they occur. Then after you create the new charts, we say the new Pareto charts that will result out of that will show the progress in the terms of how are we progressing in terms of fixing the problem. And then the second last, we can say, proceed by using the data on the new charts and not the older charts. So once you have replaced the first chart with a new one, the dynamics have changed, they have been realigned, don't go back to the original one. Now continue using the new charts that you are developing until you are able to zero in. And finally, we are saying, target the new most significant problems through new root cause analysis. So you keep on bringing it up and you can see the progress that you have. Any questions so far? Let me hear comments before now we move to the process, which I'll also try to, of course, there are several slides. They're about 14 points, but I'll see how to just summarize them so that we can understand them. How, when, any question, clarification, or it's clear so that we move together? I told you Pareto analysis is more the one that will look more in depth. By the time we go to the fishbone, I think you alluded to it yesterday, it is very easy. It is not as hard as Pareto analysis. And the drawing a fish, it's one of the easiest things that we started drawing when we were still in our formative ages. Any question, comment so far? All it's fair enough, we proceed to the process. That will take us a few more slides.
Fair enough, I'll proceed.
We can proceed. Great, thank you for that. So let's look at now the process. We have looked at how we can use the Pareto principle and how we can draw the charts. So now let's look at the process of Pareto analysis. So in terms of the process, I've summed down into 14 points, and they're not so far from what Catherine took us through the processes of the problem solving. But now we come back to the Pareto because it involves data and the graphs. And again, I'll not go much again is called, like, it's just telling you how to draw these charts and the graphs, how you classify, how you tally. So I'll just rush through it. So the first point is to decide on what will classify in your problems. You remember how we classify them? How do you cluster them? Once you make a decision on how you will classify your problems, then that will be the first step. Then the next step will be to make a list of the preliminary list of problem categories. And don't make too many. Ideally, we say don't exceed maximum of 6, because if you have so many clusters, then you'll be lost in the details. So make a list of the preliminary list of the problems that you have and make them maximum of 6. If you go too much, 7, because those ones you can be able, as we have agreed, you can always come up with more charts. Then, the third step, the process of the Pareto analysis, determine the time frame or other scope. You must establish the scope, because you cannot do this indefinitely. So you must be able to say, for which period are you going to analyze this data? Is it for the last 1 month when the complaint started being? Is it since Rick went on leave? Is it since the beginning of the year? So establish the scope, and you are able to limit yourself to that scope. So the scope is in terms of the time, and maybe should represent the whole process under the examination, so that you can look at it maybe from, if the complaints is about the delays, at what point, how was the ordering done, what time did it take until the delivery. So the scope should be able to limit in terms of the time you want to catch up, and also the system, so that you don't leave some other lines. Because you can imagine if it's a complaint about the delay and you want to analyze it from the time it was dispatched to the time it went to arrive to the customer, because you just want to analyze the transport. You should be able to go back up to the order time to actually calculate the whole time. So once you determine the time frame and also the scope, then you tally each of the problem category. If it's the errors, the defects, you know how you tally, where you put 1, 2, 3, 4 bars and cross with the 5th one. That is merely tallying of the frequency, so that you can put this data into the chart. So what you're telling is the frequency of the occurrence, maybe the cost, the time it took to do something, or maybe anything that will fit in your classification in terms of the tallying. Then from there, we go to number 5. It's where you determine the total occurrence of maybe the cost, the time taken, or each of the classifications that you have. Once you tally, then you do what is the total occurrence of all that. Maybe how many customers have complained, all that. After that, you determine the cumulative percentages under each of the problem classification. You have done the tally, you have the accumulation. What is the percentage? That gives you the way to actually define what has done. Once you do the cumulative percentage under each of the problem by, mostly you take each classification, you divide by the total number of occurrences, or what you call the grand total, and you do a percentage by 100. We all know how to arrive at the percentages. After you do the percentages, the next thing you'll do, you arrange the problem classification. You see those classifications we arrived at from the highest value to the lowest. So which is the most frequent? So you start from the highest to the lowest frequency, and in other categories should be at least regardless of the results. You just plug in between. Then from there, you plot a graph. It is not hard to plot a graph. And we say, when you're plotting the graph, we always say that the height of the bar will correspond with the values or the number of occurrences or the frequencies. Then the X, what we call the X axis or the bar or the width, should be the same size, but not touching each other. So if you look at the bar chart we have, the width of those bar, they are the same. It's only the frequency that differs. So if you decide it should be the same across, it's only the height that will differ. Then you label your bars, what is in the horizontal axis and also what is in the X axis, the same way. Then you join the bars with a line, just the way you join there on top to actually see how the frequency is moving. Those are basic issues. Then title your charts and do the brief summary of the problem. When when you collected the data, anything that you do in the research, and how you arrived at that. Then from there, from that data and from the charts and how you collected in terms of the methodology and all that, then you can be able to make decision on the chart. You can use to clarify, identify the most important problem that you need to deal with and what can be corrected immediately. And then finally, use the same process to construct your charts, because we said once you resolve those issues, you can keep on developing new charts. That is basically the process. It's not different with how you develop histogram and the pie charts that we learned when you're doing research. In our universities, in our research work, it's the same, but you can see how you collect from an organization point for decision making. So that is how we apply. There's so much knowledge we learned about drawing charts, especially when you're dealing with Excel. And then as a tip, before we go to the phases, we say you can find sources of potential root cause analysis from different areas such as escalation, machine failures, customer complaints. These are just as examples of the classification credit notes, customer service. Hello, can you hear me now? Hello? Hello? Sorry, I lost the class because of some connectivity issues. Yeah, Frida has confirmed you can hear me. Sorry for that. I think I need to share my presentation again. Tell me whether you can see it. Now you can see my presentation. Sorry for that. So let me look at the chat if there were any questions before you lost me. Yes, Priska, we can confirm you can hear me. Now you can see the presentation. My apologies for that. So then we'll continue with the phases of Pareto analysis for root cause analysis. And, the phases are 4, just to summarize. Again, I think I'll just explain instead of going through the process because they are very easy. We have 4 phases. when you're doing Pareto analysis or root cause analysis, and they're practically in a structured and well-defined manner. And the first phase is identification of cause of defects. In case we are dealing with issues of defects, causes of the errors, causes of the complaints, whichever category you've done. So the first thing is to identify the causes. That is why we call it the root cause analysis. What is causing all the problems we are having? What is causing the unachievement of our goals and our performance target from personal or also maybe organization level? So that is the first phase. And what entails identification of causes of defects? What causes? So here, what we normally do, you identify all possible causes that you can think of. Any cause that you think could have caused that, even from the customer complaint, just list them. Once you identify all the possible causes, then you go into what we call the data collection through brainstorming. We said you also have to use the users, the people who are using your products, who are complaining about the defects. Do surveys. Once you do the data collection and brainstorm, you can also do it through what I call focus group, or maybe task forces, or through the surveys to collect the data, because we have a big list, but now we want to narrow down to facts. The data, I say, they don't lie. Once you collect the data, then you aim at finding all the actionable items. Among all the data and the complaints and the information that I have picked, you have to be realistic. What is actionable and what is not actionable? Because if you pick something that is not actionable, you'll just be carrying dead weight that you cannot resolve. And you'll be coming up with solutions that you cannot implement. So you have to be very realistic, and you have to look at that result, the actionable things that you can work on. So that is the identification of the causes of the defects. Then the second phase, after now you have identified all the causes, you have collected all the data, and you've been able to come up with all actionable items that you know you can resolve, you go to collection of the sample data. How would you do the sampling? The sampling, just like any research, it is just sampling. Then after you do the sampling, then you go to graphical representation of the results, because you cannot pick all the data. Now you use the sample and you do a graphical representation the way I've taken you through. Then from there, it is the interpretation of the graphed results. So let's look at each at a very high level. I think for identification, I've already explained what that entails. And here is just examples of a situation in a manufacturing industry. This company actually manufactures glass windows. The windows we normally use in our real estate, in our houses, and any glass windows that can be made is what this organization is doing. So when they're coming up with some of the possible causes of the glass inconsistencies, maybe the inferior qualities, maybe the breakages. So some of the possible causes they picked, in this case, it's a case study, it's poor production process. That one of the things that could cause the complaint about the quality of the glass, it could be poor production process. The way the glass is being handled during the production process could be a possible cause. Then they also looked at the mishandling at the factory. After the production has been done, you know, you have to move this glass from the maybe at one point in the production floor, maybe to the warehouse, waiting for delivery. There could be mishandling issues. Probably we don't wait for it until it dries. Maybe it's recklessly carried, so that could be an issue. The other issue they looked at, it could be faulty in the packaging. Maybe by the time we remove from the warehouse and we are packaging it, then we are not packaging it well in a very protective way. By the time it reaches the customer, it already have broken edges, or it's already damaged. Or maybe it is put in an environment where maybe it's humid, maybe there is water contamination and it starts changing the colors. Then the other issue they picked could be problem during transportation. How do we transport our glass products to the customers? Do we use pickups, open pickups where they don't have those fittings? The mbao they normally fix the windows in, that could also be an issue. So you'll see in each of the above identified causes can be acted upon. So now you can have identified the actionable item, you can move to the phase 2. We can see all the items we have, there's something we can do about them. They're not just wishful thinking. About poor production, we can look at it. Is it the people who have not been well trained? Is it maybe the machines? Is the mishandling of the factory? It's done by people or by the conveyor belts, the faulty packaging. We can do something about it. The problem during transportation, of course, it's within our control or the outsourced services. Then you do collection of the samples. Among those things that we have looked at the possible causes, now go pick such windows and start analyzing what is the likely cause. So once you do the sampling, why do you do the sampling? When you're doing the sampling, you decide on the time period. Again, establish a scope of the analysis. So we are starting for glasses that were made between January and December of 2021, or when the complaint started. So this kind of sampling, we are not saying this is the first time we are having a complaint about the inferior quality of the windows, but we have limited our scope, and that is how now the sampling comes about. Sampling just looks at a representative of that. So the other thing, it has to be time specific. E.g., do you want to do it on a quarterly basis? Do you want to do it on a biannual basis? That's also part of that. Then from there, you tally the quality of the quality problems under the cause of maybe the inferior quality. After you tally, for example, poor production, tally per category of what you have classified. Then from there, we go to the graphical representation of that. In the graphical representation, we say summarize and represent the results graphically, express the percentages of each cause in relation to the total number of the defects that you're dealing with, plot the graphs in form of a histogram, or then the causes category to be on the X where the bars are standing. If you look at that, what is horizontal now, those will be the causes. And we say the graphs, the bars should be the same size. It's only the height that will actually, which shows the occurrence or the frequency will differ. And then most occurring cause listed to the farthest left and the least to the farthest right, as we can see in that diagram. And I think that is all. Then finally, we move to interpreting and application of which I had explained. So when you're coming to interpretation and also applying the graphed results, we say the line graph drawn over the histogram show, you can see the line that is drawn up here, like in this example. That's a good example. We are saying the line graph drawn over the histogram show the percentages of the total defects that we dispose as we perform the actionable item from the left to the right. Then you'll notice that about 80% of the defective, you can see 85% of the defective products are caused by 20% of maybe possible defects, maybe the last two bars that you can see. Then you conduct another Pareto analysis, draw another graph, see the changes in one production may shift the other remaining qualities, and that keeps on changing. And I think that is just a demonstration on how we deal with it. Any question? Then we go to Fishbone. Fishbone is not as detailed as the Pareto Principle. It is just about 2-3 slides. Then we look at the difficulties which might come in two slides. And finally, what are the tips so that we can have an effective root cause analysis. Any question on Pareto before we move to Fish? Is it clear? I need some confirmation whether it's clear, whether we are well understood, and whether I can proceed to the Fishbone. The rest is not much. And I think Fishbone, you had also tackled it with Catherine. It's clear, complicated, but clear. Yes, we actually said Pareto is one of probably scientific. It involves plotting of graphs. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of input, but you can see one time you can be faced by a very complicated item, and then just using the simple, it's not working, but you're able to build consensus, especially where there is resistance, where you're dealing with customer issues and a lot of data is required. So let's continue with that. That's good feedback, but at least we are now not clueless. When you're sitting in those strategic tables, we can even recommend even the people in the research department, the marketing, the sales, when they're giving us presentation of the data, we can equally challenge them on the table and say, can we have some Pareto graphs? Can we have some graphics? Have you done research? Have you thought about this? So it keeps us more updated and you're able to discuss those issues, especially when you go for those strategic meetings and you can challenge other departments where applicable. And we can see where we can use it in our own ways in HR, especially when you're dealing with maybe capacity building issues, training, you want to justify the training. So fishbone, as the name suggests, it is actually just a fishbone diagram, or what we popularly call cause-effect diagram. So we normally look at the causes of the problems, then we relate it to the effects. And it has 3 names that can be used interchangeably. So when you hear about cause-effect diagram, it means the fish diagram. And the fish diagram has come from the shape it has, because we have the heads, the tail, and the bones, and the vertebrae we can see here. Then it also being referred as Ishikawa diagram, and this is based on the founder, who is called Ishikawa, who actually founded this, and that is why it came about. So what's the fishbone diagram? As we can say, it starts from plotting. If you remember the steps, or the steps of drawing of root cause analysis, the first step we said it is problem definition. You define the problem situation. Then thereafter, you look for the causes, and we said the causes could be many. So near the neck or the head is where you put the problem. What is this problem that you're dealing with? Then from there, you draw a straight line, which we can call the backbone of a fish, if the fish has that backbone. Then the main bones that comes from that line is what we call, what are the main causes? Then, as we say, don't do so many. We say 6 to 7. In this case, you can see they have 6. So those are the main causes of the problem that you are dealing with. Then the small branches you can see are the secondary or the subsidiary causes that you can have. And you can relate to what Polycarp was saying. When you keep on probing the why. So the problem could be errors, maybe the processes, but within that, why are we having errors? So you keep the second why develops another branch, like that. So you keep on having branches. Of course, if you have to go many, it will not even take that shape. It will take like a branch again. So that is what we call the cause-effect diagram of the fishbone diagram. Is it clear? So we say the head defines the problem statement specifically and clearly writes it near the head or the mouth of the fish. Then the other bone, which is the bigger bone, think about the major factors that cause the problem, draw branches from the fish as bigger bones, write the name of each major cause as category near each bone, then think about all the possible secondary causes and contribute, and then draw small branches running through them. Then I think that is just the way you keep on reading that you can go to further. Any question on the fishbone? That we say that the dig deeper and continue organizing the causes under related causes or category. It is as simple as that. So it will take the shape of a fish, and it has to be connected to the head, which is the problem statement and the understanding of the problem situation. Is it clear? Let me hear. That is simple. It's simpler than the Pareto.
The fishbone is clear. Hi, Rhoda, you on mute. You're on mute. Can't hear you. Hello? Hello?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute. At what point did I lose you? So that I can start from there?
Just like a few seconds before, like 10, 20 seconds.
Polika, at what point did I lose you?
Can you hear me?
What is the last statement that I said? The last statement that you heard from me before I went mute? Oh, I was asking whether the fishbone is clear. That's good. So what I said, we want to look at the list of the difficulties. And the question that I posed thereafter was, with all these methods that we have learned for the last 3 days, from Tuesday, after we did with the crisis management, I said Catherine mentioned about 8 approaches or method of problem solving. And I talked about the PDCA, plan, do, check and act. I talked about the appreciative inquiry that she took you through. What I've tackled today, which is the 5 why technique, the Pareto analysis, the cost effect of the fishbone. And then she also mentioned about other complicated approaches like the scientific methods, the simplex approach, and she also talked about the drill down approach. With all the 8 approaches that we have dealt with and we have learned, my question was, are they all clear? Are they all easy to use? Are they all effective? Or do we encounter some challenges when you're using? What are some of the challenges you think we can encounter? I've had my participant tells me, this is very good, but the ground is different. So how is the ground different? What are some of the difficulties and the challenges as we send you back to the marketplace are you likely to experience with this? Root cause analysis and problem solving issues. Just type your comments. If you are not able to unmute, if you are able to unmute, just throw in your comments as we proceed. We are just at the tail end.
Hello? Can you hear me?
What are some of the challenges, the difficulties that you are likely to experience out there? Of course, I'll give you the tips before we finish the course. Lack of management support. That is one of the challenges we are likely to experience. What else? Lack of management support, preset assumptions, closed mindset. Those are some of the challenges. And for real, those are some of the challenges we'll encounter in the workplaces. So let's see what I have put down together. You can always add at some of the difficulties. There are not so many. And from what I see in this picture, it's me and you. Now going to the workplace. Now we have gone with our certificates from ICHRP. We are now loaded with this Pareto analysis, the problem solving skills. We have said now we have effective and efficient tools for problem solving. But once we learned, we find we have some challenges. So some of the difficulties that we are likely to experience when you're dealing with the root cause analysis, I can summarize them again into 6 points. So from the 6 points, what we see, the first is the challenge we are likely to experience and the difficulties that is likely to experience is lack of asking for help. That when you're faced by a problem, you want to deal with it alone from start to end. You don't want to form focus groups. You don't want to consult. And you want to say, I know what the problem is. If you go with it with a closed, biased mind or a know-it-all mindset, it may not work very well. You remember I kept on saying, especially at the explorative, when you're trying to understand the problem, you have already defined the problem, but there are a lot of complaints about the defect. There are a lot of complaints about maybe the shipment, the procurement. There are a lot of problems that when someone went on leave, Polycarp, I see your comment. Let me try to promote you just a minute. You had dropped off. I will promote you so that you're able to chat. Then if you're in the meeting, kindly do that. There are people who are dropped off and they are back to their attendance. Kindly bring them back. I can see Naomi, Polycarp, Silas, Frida, Helen, try to promote them if you're able to do that. I think when I was also thrown out, I lost the right as well. Then it's going to do it. So if you don't consult, it's likely to be a challenge that you want to. So we should always go out with a mentality that when you're dealing with a problem, it is not my problem, it's an organizational problem. We all need help, we all need support. So we should be able to rally different people who have different opinions, look at the problems from a different perspective, and it is important to consider other points of view, the viewpoints of other, especially the people from the problem owners or the people who are experiencing. It's always good to listen to them. The other challenge or difficulty we are likely to experience is the inaccurate diagnosis of the problem. I said, if we don't do proper definition of the problem, even the solutions that we are likely to come up with are not likely to solve the issues that we are dealing with. So the first thing we should be able to do is to properly diagnose the problem and define the problem. Once you are able to do that, then it becomes very easy because even the causes will be properly diagnosed and will be able to come up with solutions as they come. So inadequate diagnosis of the problem, inaccurate problem statement, or failure to actually understand is likely to yield to poor results. Then the third point that I want to put across is the failure to understand the root cause analysis. If you don't understand the root cause analysis, it is not about trying to replace something that is faulty with a new one. It is not about quick fixes. We said root cause analysis, it's about drilling to the root cause of the problem so that once we deal with the root cause of the problem, we are not likely to have a recurrence of that problem. But if we start treating the effects, the symptoms, or the impacts, and we leave the root causes still buried, it is likely to keep on recurring, and it's even likely to even grow bigger, cost us more profitability, be more costful, because everything cheap is very expensive. Then the third point is failure to identify all the root causes of the problem is likely, it is like sweeping things under the carpet. We deal with 2 issues, but we still leave some 2 other issues that have not been resolved, especially the organizational cultural issues and the management style and the leadership. If we don't deal with all the issues and to identify all the root cause, it is likely to lead to the problem recurring again. Then the 5th point, it is failure to understand the workings of the individual components of the system and also the system as a whole. So we said things are always interrelated and interconnected into a system. So you first need to understand each component of the issue. We can look at the example we had of Peter and Rick. One is a primary data specialist. The other one is a secondary data administrator. If we look at the primary data on its own and also look at the secondary on its own, we need to understand if one system is not working, it is likely to affect the other. So the first thing is to understand as a component individually and also try to interlink it and understand as a whole. Failure to interrelate and to understand them in that context, it's likely to lead to some problems in the root cause analysis. And finally, a major pitfall that most people go through, it is the actioning, the very last step. We said we can come up, we can diagnose all the solutions, put them in books, but if we don't action it, if we don't entrench them in the system, we don't implement, it will all be futile at the end of the day. If we don't follow up, we don't monitor that the solutions we put in place are working and they're effective, then it will all be lost, regardless of how much effort we have been put into it. And that brings up to the end of the difficulties. But is it all lost? Or there are solutions to this? It's not all lost. We are going to give you some few tips on how you can deal with them. So the first thing that I'll say in terms of the tips for effective root cause analysis, it is don't rush into looking for quick fixes and the solutions immediately a problem comes about. It is always good that for root cause, solution may not be as obvious as it appears from the beginning. So always take time, drill down, state the problem, understand the issues, and then look for the root cause. Don't be quick to rush to a quick fix to come up a solution and could condemn before you go through the whole process. Then the other issue that I'll say, the role of the facilitator, who should be assigned as should be one of the members of the root cause. You remember, Catherine talked about how you constitute a problem-solving team. So the person who is running with this, or the facilitator of the root cause analysis, should actually be one of the members of the root cause team, not someone who is out and who is not connected and has no understanding. This helps in building consensus and keeping track of the progress and also ownership of the process as it goes on. So we should not have the CEO who is not even part of the process being the facilitator, or a HR who is not in that department, who is not dealing with the customer issues. It must be someone who is in the system and who understands all the issues, and he'll be able to follow up and monitor actively. Then the third point I'll say, ensure that the solution or improvements that is suggested by you are agreeable to everybody in your team, because you could be the facilitator, you're trying to push a solution, but there are some dissenting voices and you have not been able to build consensus. And I've actually shown you how to build consensus. So ensure that the solutions or the improvement that you're suggesting, you as the facilitator or the lead, are agreeable to everyone in your team, because the implementation and the buy-in will become very easy. Then the other issue that will say, suggest steps. In fact, we've said only suggest steps or actions or betterment that can be practically be implemented in the real life situation. Don't be lost in the theory and the graphs, and the solution that you are giving is not practical. You remember even the courses that we were looking for, we said they must be actionable in real life because we exist in the real life. You cannot go proposing recommendations, yet you understand the organization you work with cannot even afford such a solution. So they must be realistic, they must be implementable, and they must be real in the context of the organization that you are existing in. Of course, if you're in a startup company, you cannot go give solutions where successful organizations, the big brands like Safaricom, the kind of system they have in place is what you want to have in place. You are in a totally different league. So it's also good to understand your business, know where you lie, and the solutions, whether they are affordable, they are realistic, they are fit to the organization culture, and whether even the management is able to actually implement. Then the other point, we can call it point 5, it is practice, practice, practice. Rome was not built in a day. The masters of all the solutions and the methods all started as amateurs, but they believed in practicing, practicing, and practicing. Of course, it's not easy. When you start on with this, you will fail and you'll keep on failing. But until you keep on practicing and practicing until you become perfect, that is the only way out. So don't fear, practice from the small problem-solving issues to complex one. Just practice, practice in a big, any small way, in an individual perspective, in a professional way. Just practice until you are able to. Everything new is also a challenge. Sorry for that. So always practice. Then the other tip that I will give is ensure that you look at all the colossal relationship that exists between the different components of the system that is involved in a problem. Don't look at it in a component, look at all the interlinked relationship that should be there so that you are able to, causal relationship, you are able to relate. And then second last, never agree as the implementer or the person proposing, never agree to implement an action plan that you cannot implement practically. That a team, a task force has come into place and they have given these solutions that are not practical. Because the team, they'll say, we sat for a long time, we invested, we gave the solution, but the line manager or the person who is supposed to implement has not implemented. Because once the documents were given to you or the plan, you realize you don't even have a budget, they are not realistic, they are not implementable, let them not be pushed down your throat. So never agree to implement an action plan that cannot be implemented practically. Agree to implement actions plans that are within your control, within your practice, and the ones that are realistic. If you're being given something that is you don't have control, it will be very difficult for you to really implement because you have no control even to the success, but then it will be blamed on you. And finally, I would say, select the right team. If you're the one in it, ensure that people who, it's not just the hierarchical positions that I'll take all the HOD, I'll take all this. In selecting your team for problem solving or the root cause analysis, have a good skills mix. People who can really understand the problem, who have experienced the issues, they can be able to give you the right thinking. So ensure that the thinking skills, who understand the process thoroughly, are able to explore the why, the what, and all those questions that we asked about the problem solving. And that brings me to the end of this session, our 4th day, where we have dealt with the root cause analysis. I know it's a bit technical, but I think knowledge is power. Once we're empowered to do this, then we can confidently even discuss when you're dealing with matters strategy, matters research, problem solving, even beyond what we do. So that's the end of this session. And for me, it's just maybe a practice, and how we practice, I'll tell you to carry home an exercise after the end of this session that look carefully at one of the problems that you're facing. This is not even in organization, an individual level, either a personal or professional life. Now create a fishbone diagram for this problem, and based on your fishbone, answer the following question. What is your problem statement? What is it that is causing you not maybe operate at the optimal level or achieve the goals that you had set, maybe at the beginning of the year? And what are the major causes listed in the main branches that you have? Lack of resources. What can you do it? One stream of income. How can you diversify? We have seen how people have lost jobs. Then what are those in the main branches? What can you do? Then root cause. What is causing all this problem? What is causing all this fear? What is causing all this inaction? Then how can you eliminate and how can you deal with this? Are there trainings that you need to attend? Are there capacity building that you need to do so that you're able to diversify? And what are the timelines? Just do it at a personal level, and just take a project, whether at home level, family level, just do something to ensure, but as you set your targets for and the goals for the year 2022, you are aware that apart from getting your CPD points for the IHRM, you've been able to carry home something. So with that, we have come to the end of our 4-day session for the online. We started on Monday, as I said, from crisis management. Then Catherine took us through the 2 days with effective problem solving. And finally, we have been able to pick some of the 3 approaches in terms of the root cause analysis and expounded some of the 3 approaches that she talked about. And that brings me to the end. So I've been happy to be your facilitator for day 1 and also day 4. And for the participation, I think much appreciated. I can see people have been able to move to this other side, and that is it. So I'll pause for questions. I'm sure Dan is in the panel, but for the purpose of gaining your CPD point, I know he'll guide you that you go to our learning management system. You'll be able to get all the PowerPoint presentations that we've done from Monday to today. All those notes will be accessible through the learning management system. If you call the academy, they should be able to guide. If you don't have a password and the account creation, they should be able to do that. And if Dan is around, he could comment on that. All your certificates, again, we don't issue physical certificates. You'll be able to download and print them from your learning management system. So for me, that is all, but I would still have more time to pick some questions, any comments. You can put them on the chat. If you are able to unmute, let's just engage before we officially close the 4-day session. I can see what is coming on the chat. No questions, just thank you. Great session, very engaging and applicable. We'll apply the same in my work processes and also the personal life. That's very good. Let's hear a comment. I know we are really gearing up for the festivity. Christmas is here with us, but let's look back. Whatever we have learned from Monday, let's take it back to our workplaces. We go back more rejuvenated. Let's apply. Any comments before we close? Any comments? I'll give just 2 minutes for any comments, clarifications, so that I don't close you out. Any question? Helen, Naomi, Priska, Silas, Frida, Polycarp. Polycarp has seen your comments, and the rest. So if there are no further questions, I'll comment. So that has Frida, you have said thanks a lot for the great presentation. We have learned a lot to apply. Thank you, and you're much welcome. No questions from Priska, that's okay. So just to thank you very much for your participation, for listening till the end. We don't take it for granted as the Academy of Certified HR Professions. So just be on lookout on the other series that we'll have from January, the symposium, the summit that will be lined up. Just keep it up, and we are looking forward to seeing you again. So from me, it is a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as we jump into the year of the Lord 2020. Let's let's be careful as we go to our festivities, as we drive to wherever we are going to celebrate. Let's take care of our families so that we are able to meet again. And we wish you all the best. Thank you very much and have a beautiful afternoon. Merry Christmas to all of you.